Chapter 801. What truth? Peter asked. Gu Mingming looked at Peter's expression and knew that he had already guessed it. It was just that he was unwilling to admit or mention it. She said that she was the one who turned you into a stray beast. So you were once partners? I can see that you have deep feelings for her. She doesn't seem like an unreasonable female. Why did she make a fuss to remove the mating mark? Peter laughed bitterly. His gaze drifted towards the cave. He said in an obscure voice, "She really talked to you." Gu Mingming sighed. "If you really don't want to tell me, I won't force you. But let me tell you the truth. Given her current condition, she can't survive the coming winter. Even if I give you the kiss of the ocean, she won't be able to withstand the immense power of the kiss of the ocean in her current condition. If you force it on her, she will only explode and die prematurely." Peter frowned. He glared at Gu Mingming with a murderous look. Gu Mingming's words about that female dying had clearly hurt him. But this little female who said she would die was the only female who could make him speak in the past few months. Perhaps she really had a way? Suppressing his dissatisfaction, Peter slowly said, "I removed the mating mark because she didn't like me from the start. No matter what I did, she would only hide from me. She would run away the moment she saw me. She didn't give me any chance at all. So, I used force on her." Gu Mingming was dumbfounded. Did he really rape her? No wonder she wanted to remove the mating mark with him regardless of whether you lived or died. If it were her, she wouldn't have allowed a rapist's mark to remain on her body. "You don't have to look at me like that. I never felt that I did anything wrong." Peter lifted his head and continued. "Firstly, I was able to snatch her away from her partner and forcefully mate with her in a deserted place. This proves that her partner is too weak and can't protect her at all. She needs a strong partner to ensure her own safety. Secondly, if I mate with her, it will be a gamble with my own life. After I mate with her, her life will be my life. She will know that I will not harm her at all. She does not need to be afraid of me. As long as she is not afraid of me, she will slowly realize how good I am. I am confident that I can move her. Even if she cannot fall in love with me in the end, I am willing to stay by her side unloved for the rest of my life and protect her from all dangers. Even if I can only become food in the end, I am willing. But obviously, I lost. Even if I put my life in her hands, she was still unwilling to look at me. She was still afraid of me, still resisted me, still didn't believe that I wouldn't hurt her." Gu Mingming coldly interrupted Peter's words. "The facts prove that you have hurt her. A scumbag will always be a scumbag. No matter how much love you pretend to have, you can't change the fact that you tortured her for more than 10 years. "I didn't," Peter denied agitatedly. Not to be outdone, Gu Mingming questioned him. "You didn't? You raped her and you still say you didn't." "I just needed a chance to prove to her that I love her," Peter growled. Gu Mingming laughed coldly. "You forced her to do something she doesn't like just because you love her? Have you ever thought about how helpless, how humiliated, and how scared your so-called opportunity made her feel? You are in the process of hurting her to prove that she doesn't need to fear you? What a preposterous argument." Aside from the topic, a man used all his resources to buy a whole cart of bananas to confess to the girl he loved. The girl rejected him. Then everyone started discussing and criticizing the girl for not knowing what was good for her. She had given up everything for you, yet you still rejected her. The girl felt very innocent and helpless. She had never asked a guy to do such things for her. Moreover, she didn't like bananas at all. So Susu said that blindly giving up in love was meaningless. Unrestrained giving would only move one's heart and coerce one's lover. Learn to love and know how to give others what they want, not what you want to give them. Chapter 802. Peter clenched his fists and growled angrily. "Since that's the case, why doesn't she just kill me to vent her anger? If she hates me, she can just kill me. None of her partners can defeat you. How can she kill you?" Gu Mingming roared back, refusing to back down. Peter laughed coldly. "If she wants me dead, she just needs to say the word, and I will personally dig open my own chest and crush my heart in front of her. As long as she can feel just a little bit of happiness for me, just a little bit." Gu Mingming was completely speechless. Where did the males in the beast world get their weird views on love from? They were practically twisted into instant noodles. But she didn't do it even once. How much does she hate me to use such a method to torture me? Peter seemed to have lost all his energy and fell to the ground. The wound on his leg split open and blood flowed out. But he continued as if he didn't feel anything. Even though I became a stray beast, I still love her. No matter how many females I snatched, I never touched any of them. If it wasn't her, I would feel disgusted. So I went back to snatch her back. I thought that since I am already a stray beast, snatching females is the most normal thing to do. So what if I don't have a mating contract? I just want to keep her by my side. I want to torture her. I want to take revenge on her. But in the end, every time I see her, I lose all will. Every time she cries, my world is thrown into chaos. Ha! Everyone says that stray beasts are heartless, but why does my heart still hurt so much? Gu Mingming frowned and asked, since that's the case, why did you still kill her partners and make her sad? Peter looked up and stared at Gu Mingming in a daze for a moment. Suddenly he laughed. She still thinks that I killed her partners? Even after so many years, she still thinks so. She still doesn't believe that I would not hurt her. Gu Mingming frowned and thought to herself, could it be a misunderstanding? But she clearly said that every time Peter left the house, a few marks on her body would disappear. Once or twice could be a coincidence, but wasn't it too far-fetched to claim that it was a coincidence every time? Peter sighed and said, she refuses to talk to me now. She won't believe anything I say. I'll tell you the truth, and you help me persuade her, okay? Gu Mingming did not directly agree, but said, that depends on how real your truth is, and whether it is worth my help. Peter's face was full of sorrow. It was faint, but it didn't melt away. After I snatched Natalie back, her other partners went crazy looking for me all over the world. Then they found this place. They contacted the other males who had their females snatched away and started a fight. But how could a bunch of fellows with no battle experience other than hunting compete with stray beasts? Every time they attack, I'm not there to kill. I'm there to save people. But they refused to listen to me, and I had to hide my identity from the other stray beasts. I really tried my best, but I couldn't save everyone every time. Like you said, I can't save someone who wants to die. Their attack back then was no different from suicide. I tried my best, I really tried my best. But in the end, not a single one of them was saved. Peter's expression was especially heavy, as if he had not forgotten the look in Natalie's eyes when she had wronged him and misunderstood him. Chapter 803. Then why didn't you explain? Gu Mingming asked. Peter looked like he had heard a joke and countered. Explain? Ha! It was the first time she smiled at me and asked me not to leave in a coquettish manner. She was clearly trembling in fear, but she still snuggled into my arms, sobbing as she said she was afraid of the dark, that she needed me and wanted me to hug her. How should I explain? How should I push her away and tell her that I didn't kill her partners? She didn't need to please me like this. Even though I knew she was lying to me, I couldn't reject her. I couldn't say that I didn't need her. Damn it, I can't get rid of this greed. Gu Mingming's heart was clawed. Peter dug his hand into his hair and grabbed it, as if he wanted to tear his own head off. I don't want her partners to die more than anyone else. As long as they are alive, Natalie will continue to act coquettishly to me to protect them. Just for this lie, I will damn risk my life to keep her partners alive. But what could I do? Those two idiots thought that I was using them to threaten Natalie, so they charged towards the cliff. As they fell, they laughed and told me that I no longer had any bargaining chips to keep Natalie in captivity. I wanted so badly to grab them and dig out their brains to see what was in them. If they were all dead, all the more I can't let Natalie go. Apart from me, there's no one else around her who can prepare food for her. How can I let her go? Gu Mingming frowned and said, but she said you forced her to choose between her children and those two partners. Peter shook his head and said, when I forced her to choose, those two idiots were not dead yet. Her first and second partners were marked on her chest. I thought those two fellows were important enough to her for her to give up the child in her womb for them. After all, that child belonged to me, the person she hated to the core. At that time, I decided to abort the child, then let her go, because I knew that her partners would not give up on trying to save her. If those two also died in the end, she would break down. Gu Mingming instinctively looked at Elvis and pursed her lips in silence. She almost couldn't see her husband anymore. Was it an ancestral tradition for their family to want to kill their own son? Instinctively, she hugged Elvis's neck, as if he would disappear any time. Towards Gu Mingming's inexplicable uneasiness, Elvis's response was to kiss her little face gently and comfort her. "Don't be afraid, I won't leave you." "Yeah." Gu Mingming nodded and pressed her face against Elvis's. Peter's eyes were filled with envy as he watched their little interaction. He turned his head and said, "Even if it was just once, if she could rely on me like this, we would not have ended up in this state today." Gu Mingming did not say anything because their entanglement was misplaced right from the start. No matter what reason they had, forcing a female to mate against her will was not worth forgiving. Peter continued, "Natalie is willing to stay by my side for the sake of the child in her womb. Perhaps this is the kindest and cruelest thing she has ever done to me." Chapter 804. Elvis was unbelievably calm. He wasn't affected by Peter's words at all. He just said coldly, "It's not a question of whether I believe it or not, because I don't care at all." Peter chuckled and nodded. "That's right. I don't care either. It doesn't matter whether you or your other brothers survive, as long as one survives." "One survives?" Gu Mingming clearly remembered Natalie saying that she gave birth to 6. She was so sad that she had never heard Elvis mention his brothers. Were they all dead? Peter gazed in the direction of the cave in a daze. Stray beasts should not have children. Stray beasts only capture females to satisfy their lust. Children? That's a disgrace. I don't care if I can inherit my bloodline. I was abandoned by the beast deity. What's there to inherit? But those are the children Natalie gave birth to for me. If possible, I still wish for them to exist. Since that's the case, why did you kill your own children and purposely use this information to agitate her? Gu Mingming couldn't understand. Was this the so-called love-hate relationship? Do you know how sorrowful Natalie looked when she mentioned those children? Sorrowful expression. Peter suddenly smiled, as if he was comforted. Looks like those children didn't die in vain. Gu Mingming clenched her fists. Even a vicious tiger wouldn't eat its cubs. How could this person before her be so comforted by the death of his own children? What did he mean by not dying in vain? Gu Mingming suddenly thought of something Elvis had said to her in the past. He said that it was worth it to use all the sufferings in the past to become strong enough to protect her. She said that it was fine if she was a little weaker. Her heart ached for the hardships he had suffered as a child. But he said if he was a little weaker, he might not have the chance to stand before her. At that time, she thought he meant that she only liked the strong. If he wasn't strong enough, she wouldn't like him. But now it seemed like she had misunderstood. He meant that if he was a little weaker, then one of the 5 dead children would be Elvis. Gu Mingming's heart ached at the thought of her own man almost dying in Peter's twisted love. She really wanted to slap him to death to prevent any future troubles. When all her partners died, she wanted to use death to leave me. She had already abandoned me once. How could I let her abandon me again? Furthermore, she is so beautiful. If she dies, she will definitely return to the embrace of the beast deity, while I am destined to be abandoned and fall into hell. Come to think of it, Natalie still trusted me. She trusted me in order to abandon me. She said that this child was the only gift she had given me. I loved her so much that I would definitely treat our child well, so she can die without any worries. I can't let her have nothing to worry about. I can't. She can't give me the child and leave me forever. I won't allow it. Gu Mingming felt so suffocated that she did not even want to hear him continue. She knew how crazy males could be for love. Snake had used his own life to teach her a lesson. However, there was a difference between madness and distortion. Chapter 805. I know. In order for her to live, I continuously tortured our child, so that she would not have a shred of trust in me. Only then would she not dare to die. Even if she hates me, it doesn't matter. It's good enough that she can live. Peter was smiling, but his lips and eyes were tinged with bitterness. Since that's the case, why is she so determined to seek death now? Gu Mingming had always been a soft-hearted person, but she could not sympathize with Peter at all. A pitiful person must have a detestable side. She only wanted to protect Natalie's life now. Although Elvis had no impression of her at all, at least that female was willing to endure the torture for Elvis. Death was a form of release, but in order to protect her son, she chose to live in humiliation. Every day was difficult, but she still gritted her teeth and struggled to hold on. Elvis might not have seen or felt warmth, but that did not mean her motherly love did not exist. Peter shook his head. After Elvis escaped from here, Natalie made a deal with me. She would stay by my side obediently. In exchange, I would let Elvis go and never look for him again. Gu Mingming frowned. A thought suddenly flashed across her mind. She hurriedly asked, "When did Natalie start her hunger strike?" "When the monsoon season was about to end," Peter replied. When the monsoon season was about to end, at that time, Gu Mingming lowered her eyes. During that period, did anyone special come by? Peter was taken aback. He seemed to have thought of something, but shook his head without saying a word. Gu Mingming laughed coldly. "You still want to hide it from me now? It doesn't matter. If you don't want to say, so be it." With that, Gu Mingming hugged Elvis's neck and turned her face to the side. She ignored Peter. Her heart felt suffocated. Whether it was Peter or Natalie, there was a similarity in their words. They did not mention anything about what had happened to Elvis when he was young. Peter had used the simple word torture to cover up all the details. He was obviously trying to cover it up. Elvis, Peter and Natalie were the only 3 survivors of that so-called torture. They stood on different sides and hated each other, but they had a tacit understanding to not mention anything about the past. What was he hiding? Elvis did not like Gu Mingming to be dragged into those unpleasant things. It was clearly the past. What was the point of bringing it up? What did the entanglement between Natalie and Peter have to do with him? What right did he have to involve his female? Displeasure. Deep anger was written all over Elvis's face. "Leah should be back soon. Let's eat something first." Elvis didn't want Gu Mingming and Peter to stay in the same space anymore. Because of Peter's presence, the air was filled with the stench of blood, making one lose their appetite. With that, Elvis carried Gu Mingming and walked towards the outskirts of the territory. Leah had already started a fire outside and cooked the food until it was 80% done. He originally wanted to go in and call them when the fire was ready, but he didn't expect them to come out before the food was ready. Leah smiled and said, "It's almost done, we can eat in a while." Chapter 806. Gu Mingming relied on Elvis, and Elvis had always known this. But today she was abnormally clingy. Even during mealtimes, she wanted Leah to feed her, and her little hand was still hanging around Elvis's neck, unwilling to let go for even a second. Elvis thought, perhaps it was because Peter's story made her feel bad? Frowning, he wiped her mouth that was stained from eating. "You have seen the person and the story is over. Let's go back. The children are still waiting." Elvis's heart ached at the slightest discomfort in Gu Mingming's heart. He could not forgive Peter for using those terrible things in the past to upset Gu Mingming. He had to settle this score sooner or later. But compared to venting his anger, it was more important to bring Gu Mingming away from this dark and broken place, and not let her continue to be affected. Gu Mingming shook her head and looked up at Elvis. Her lips were pressed into a straight line, and her eyes clearly showed that she had something on her mind, but she refused to open her mouth. Her expression made Elvis's heart ache and feel helpless. He looked up at Leah, gesturing for him to think of a solution. But Leah just shrugged, with a "she's hanging in your arms, not even looking at me. What can I do?" expression. He took the pot that had been used for the meal and went to wash it. It was obvious that he wanted to stay out of this matter. Elvis frowned. He was willing to do anything for Gu Mingming. As long as it was for her good, he would do it. But he was not as good at controlling her emotions as Leah was. If she didn't speak, he was at his wit's end. "Xiaoming." Elvis sighed softly and stroked her little head, asking, "What exactly are you thinking about?" Tell me, won't you? Gu Mingming still pursed her lips and refused to speak. She just hugged Elvis's neck and refused to let go. She rubbed her little face against the pit of Elvis's neck and breathed evenly and warmly on his neck. Elvis really had no way of dealing with Gu Mingming. He liked her coquettishness and dependence, and wished that she could grow on his body and never leave his side. But the prerequisite for all this was for her to be happy. Her troubled look made his heart wrench. He had already brought out the little wolf cub, but she still refused to return to Saint Nazaire. She didn't know what kind of magic potion the female had fed her back in the cave, but it only took a short while for her to become like this. He still preferred her when she rolled up her sleeves and said she wanted to pick a fight with someone. He gently cupped the back of her head and allowed her to act shamelessly in his arms. His voice was gentle and filled with indulgence and slight helplessness. What should I do to make you happy? As long as you say it, I'll do it for you, okay? Gu Mingming thought for a while before raising her head to look at Elvis. She said hesitantly, I want to save Natalie, will you help me? Chapter 807. Gu Mingming was speechless. Why did Elvis sound like he was buying a pet for his wife in front of a pet shop? Also, what did he mean by there shouldn't be any males willing to mate with her? Was he blatantly trying to find a stepfather for himself? Elvis, you sure have a big heart. I'll go ask Peter for her. If he doesn't give it to me, I'll destroy him. It'll be considered as getting rid of a pest for the people. As Elvis said that, he tried to release Gu Mingming from his arms, but she refused to let go of his neck. He didn't dare to pull her away, and could only allow her to cling on to him. Then, he turned around and walked towards Peter, saying, Will you not be sad if I bring Natalie back to you? Gu Mingming shook her head. Elvis stopped in his tracks and looked at Gu Mingming in a daze. Gu Mingming said softly, I am not sad because of Natalie and Peter. It is because of you. A chill ran down Elvis's spine. He was a little flustered but did not know what to do. He blurted out, Xiaoming, I'm sorry I was wrong. Don't be angry. Tell me, what did I do to upset you? I'll change right away, okay? Gu Mingming cupped Elvis's face and directly kissed his lips. After a long while, Gu Mingming finally released Elvis with a red face. Don't apologize. You didn't do anything wrong. I just feel heartache. Elvis froze on the spot, a warm feeling in his heart. This was the first time Mingming took the initiative to kiss him. His Xiaoming took the initiative to kiss him. I am already the happiest person in this world. Why do you still feel heartache for me? Elvis's lips curled upwards uncontrollably, his blue eyes filled with happiness. Gu Mingming wrapped her arms around Elvis's neck and hugged him tightly. She whispered into his ear, Not enough, not enough. I want you to be even happier. I want to make up for what I lost when I was young. Elvis laughed at her words. He pinched her armpits and pulled her away. He raised her up to his eyes and stared into her eyes. So you are in a bad mood because of what happened to me when I was young? Gu Mingming's eyes were filled with tears. Gu Mingming nodded, her eyes watery. After inheriting Snake's memories, she thought that her heart was already hard enough and her emotions were numb enough. There was nothing more tragic that could move her. But she was wrong. Her strength and numbness were so fragile when she met the person she valued. The moment she thought of how Elvis had suffered unspeakable pain in a place unknown to her, she felt her chest tighten and her breathing became uneven. The scariest thing was not what exactly happened to Elvis back then, but the fact that the entire world was hiding it from her, not letting her know what Elvis had experienced back then. This made her imagination grow even more limitless, and she was almost driven crazy by her own imagination. Is this also the reason you want to save Natalie? Elvis asked. Gu Mingming nodded and said, I want her to live, so that she can have the chance to make up for the happiness you missed in your childhood. Elvis pinched Gu Mingming's face and said, Silly girl, what are you thinking about? No matter when, the only one who can give me happiness is you. Your smiling face is the salvation that pulled me out of hell. Other than you, no one can make me happy. Chapter 808. Elvis lowered his head and kissed Gu Mingming's collarbone. His voice was low and hoarse, his gaze as deep as the ocean. No matter what you want to do, I will support you. But you have to promise me that you will not be sad. If you are sad, my heart will shatter into pieces. It will hurt a lot. Gu Mingming returned a kiss on Elvis's forehead. Her gaze was peaceful and gentle. Her voice was light as a feather as it brushed against Elvis's heart. As long as all of you are well, nothing can make me sad. Elvis knew that the all of you Gu Mingming was referring to included him, Leah and the 4 little ones. It could even include Sandy, Oriton, Ian, Wabi and everyone else she cared about. Actually, it was not an easy task to make everyone well. After all, males were in a battle and their lives were uncertain. Snake was the only one in the entire beast world who could live to the extent that he did. But for Gu Mingming, Elvis was willing to put all his weight on himself to protect everyone she cared about. As long as she was well. Gu Mingming leaned against Elvis's chest. Her gaze was filled with faint heartache. Hubby, can you tell me about your childhood? I am almost going crazy from my imagination. Halfway through her sentence, Gu Mingming suddenly shut her mouth and retorted. If mentioning those memories will make you feel pain again, it's fine if you don't tell me. I don't really want to know. Elvis rubbed Gu Mingming's head and smiled. Silly girl, didn't I tell you before? Although those past times were not beautiful, they allowed me to become a stronger version of myself. I used them to meet you. So, as the price I should pay for meeting you, I still feel that it is too little. Actually, it can be more painful. Gu Mingming was amused by Elvis's serious tone. Her doe-like eyes shone with a sweet light as she said, No wonder our sons always say that you and Leah are abnormal. Who would wish for more pain? Elvis was amused by Elvis's serious tone. Elvis pinched Gu Mingming's little chin and kissed her alluring lips. As long as I can meet you, I am willing to pay any price. I guess I probably saved the Milky Way in my previous life. That's why I can meet such good people like you and Leah. Elvis did not know what the Milky Way was, but if I can meet you by saving the Milky Way galaxy, then in this life, Leah and I will save him. In the next life, you are not allowed to run. Gu Mingming smiled and nodded. Yeah, I won't run. I'll just stand there and wait for you. Seeing that Gu Mingming finally smiled, Elvis's heart softened and he said, I'll bring you to see my childhood so that you don't have to think too much. Really? Gu Mingming's eyes lit up. Elvis nodded as a reply. Gu Mingming gave Elvis a peck on his face happily, and the suffocating breath in her heart was slowly released. She knew that Elvis's past was not good, but it was precisely because of this that she wanted to understand and participate in it. No matter what terrible scars there were in his past, she wanted to use warmth and love to cover those sorrows. Chapter 809. After walking for a long time, Elvis stopped at a spacious area. His gaze was calm and emotionless. He pointed at the 3 huge pits in front of him and said, I was brought away by Peter after 1 month. This was the first place they went to. Gu Mingming followed Elvis's gaze and looked at the 3 pits in front of her. She was a little confused. The diameter of the pit was about 1.8 to 2 meters. Stretching her neck and peering in, the depth was about 1.5 to 1.7 meters. The pit was empty. There was nothing in it. Elvis bent his knees and sat beside the pit. He placed Gu Mingming on his thighs and pointed to the pit in the middle. 6 brothers, 2 to a pit. At first, they threw down the leftover parts and organs. Although the quality was not good, it was at least enough for us to fill our stomachs. But, as we grew older, the amount of food didn't increase. Instead, it decreased unknowingly. Until 3 months later, no one threw food into the pit for us anymore. At first, we didn't know what was going on. We even used all our strength to jump up, hoping that someone would see us and throw food down. But there was nothing. Other than the scorching sun, the wind and the rain, nothing else happened. Then we heard our brothers' cries and wails from the pit next door. And the brothers I was locked in with started to look at each other as if we were food. Finally, the 2 brothers who used to hug each other for warmth finally bared their fangs and claws at each other. Then I won, he became my food, and I became a monster. Gu Mingming's heart clenched tightly. Her hands started trembling uncontrollably. How perverted was Peter? How could he think of such a perverted way to torture his own sons? To To think that he had just said that regardless of whether Elvis believed it or not, he was still alive because he had tried his best. T. Which father would watch his own sons kill each other and treat his own brothers as food? Damn pervert. Damn pervert. Elvis held Gu Mingming's trembling hands gently and kissed them. Silly girl, I am not telling you all this to make you afraid. Gu Mingming didn't say anything. She just looked at Elvis with heartache. But Elvis smiled very gently and said, although I feel very blissful to make you feel sorry for me. But don't be too distressed, I can't bear to do it. Gu Mingming took the initiative to approach Elvis's lips and kissed them, using her silent gentleness to soothe Elvis's old wounds. Or perhaps she was the one who needed comfort, right? Elvis enjoyed Gu Mingming's kiss, which made him very happy. Even those unbearable memories in the past did not have any special feelings anymore. In front of her gentleness, the humiliation that had once crossed his heart was like dust. It existed, but it did not pose any obstacle. Gu Mingming hugged Elvis's waist with her little hands and pressed her face against his chest. She looked at the huge pit calmly, and her mind was filled with Elvis's helpless look when he was young. Her voice became even softer and hoarser. What happened after that? Chapter 8:10. Gu Mingming looked up, her eyes filled with anticipation. Elvis could not do anything to her. He scratched her little nose and said, you can listen to the story, but you can't be upset. All that pain accumulated to meet you. If you pity me, I will become very pitiful. Gu Mingming pursed her lips and nodded. Elvis then continued, when there was only one wolf left in each of the 3 pits, someone finally approached this pit again. Unfortunately, they were not here to feed us but to fill the pit. Rocks were continuously thrown down from the top of the pit, smashing onto us, but we could not resist. The space we could move around was compressed by the rocks, while the pit entrance was piled higher and higher by the rocks. The narrow and cramped space made us more and more irritable and uneasy. Our claws dug out deep grooves on the stone walls of the pit, until one day, the huge rocks piled up at the pit entrance suddenly collapsed. We had to avoid the huge rocks in the cramped space, and quickly make judgments, before jumping out of the pit by stepping on rocks one after another. Out of the 3 pits, only 2 wolves came out alive. The other one was buried under a huge rock at the bottom of the pit, smashed into meat paste. And all of this was not the end, but the beginning. Elvis's gaze wandered around and he pointed at an empty space outside the 3 pits, saying, the other wolf that escaped from the pit and I look at each other with hatred. In each other's eyes, we are just food. Brotherly kinship and whatnot, at that time, had long disappeared. His injuries from the rocks were more serious than mine, so I was the one who survived in the end. In the 10 over years before I met you, I thought more than once, if I had known earlier, I would not have resisted and let him eat me up. This disgusting and boring life, it was fine to give it to him. But now, I'm really glad that I had that crazy desire to live, lucky that I survived, no matter how dirty and unbearable the process was. If it was for you, it was worth it. Gu Mingming's hands that were hugging Elvis were trembling. She pursed her lips and did not say a word. Elvis hooked Gu Mingming's chin, his gaze as deep as the sea of stars, so deep that it made one sink in. You promised you are not allowed to pity me. Gu Mingming shook her head, smiled and said in the most gentle voice, I'm just very touched, so to meet me, you did such a brave thing. Brave? Ha, you can always think of some words to beautify those ugly things, but I like them very much. Elvis kissed Gu Mingming's lips. It was a light and sweet kiss, without any lust, only full of love and tenderness. Elvis looked at Gu Mingming's gaze that signaled for him to continue and felt rather helpless. He really did not feel that there was anything to talk about these past events. It was not like they were heroic deeds. But he couldn't deny that no matter how insignificant these things were, after sharing them with her, he had never felt so relaxed before. It was as if the rubbish in his memories was being poured out bit by bit with every word he said. His whole heart brightened up. Smiling, Elvis tried his best to use a relaxed tone to talk about the cruel past. My eyes were bloodshot from killing, and I was thrown into the wolf's den. At that time, I seemed to be at the age of Jiaoyu and the rest. Hunger, pain, and fear were all I had at that time. Out of topic. Today is White Valentine. Happy White Valentine's Day, babies. Remember to buy some chocolates in return for the flowers I received last month. If there's a boy you like, it's time to confess then. Today's update ended. Chapter 8:11. It was either fight or die. I had no other way out. Elvis rested his chin lightly on Gu Mingming's head. Countless details of the fight, biting, bleeding and escaping from death flashed past his mind. He only said one conclusion. That pack of wolves ended up as my food. And when I came out of the wolf cave, I had just turned 1 year old, and had just transformed into a first-level beast. Gu Mingming could almost imagine what Elvis must have looked like after crawling out of the wolf cave. He must have been like the Asura who had returned from hell, crushing everyone's hopes and bearing the burden of destruction like Satan, descending upon every enemy. Thank you for being alive. Gu Mingming pressed her face against Elvis's chest and listened to his heartbeat. She was not afraid, only glad that he had not been defeated in that kind of suffering, and had waited until she met him. If she had missed him, how regretful would her life be? Silly girl, why are you thanking me? Elvis lifted Gu Mingming's little face and kissed her brow. His gaze was filled with an inexplicable sincerity, as if he was not only looking at his own female, but also at the only light in his life. It was you who brought me out of that darkness and malevolence. If I had not met you, I would probably still be killing out of boredom, wasting away my life and waiting for death to descend upon me. You were the one who pulled me out from the abyss of despair. Why are you thanking me now? Gu Mingming's heart pounded. She did not retort but just smiled. We were both groping our way along the lonely and helpless path. Then we were lucky enough to meet each other. We lit up the hope in each other's eyes and lit up our lives together. We are a family that will always be together. So, we don't have to say thank you to each other, right? Elvis's heart melted into water at Gu Mingming's words. He kissed the side of Gu Mingming's face, feeling speechless sweetness. Hubby. Gu Mingming hesitated for a moment before saying, I feel that I cannot forgive Peter. Then I will kill him. Elvis's reply was calm and certain, without the slightest bit of hesitation. It was as if Gu Mingming had only asked him to pluck a wildflower and he had said okay. Gu Mingming shook her head. That's not what I meant. Huh. Elvis glanced sideways at Gu Mingming and asked with a gentle gaze. Gu Mingming said, although Natalie and Peter are your parents, I don't want to stand on the moral high ground and demand that you must forgive them. Even I want to hack Peter into 1,000 pieces to vent my anger after hearing about your childhood experiences, not to mention you, who had personally experienced it all. Only when a knife cut into his own flesh would he know how painful the bloody wound was. So no matter what your decision is, I will support you unconditionally, because only you have the right to decide whether to forgive or not. But I want to tell you what I know. I'll let you make a decision that you won't regret while knowing the truth as much as possible, okay? Chapter 8:12. After listening to Gu Mingming's narration, Elvis's face did not show any signs of emotion. Even his heart was calm. His desire for familial love had long been extinguished in those 3 huge pits. Now that he suddenly had a mother who was willing to endure such humiliation for him, the only thought in his heart was, actually, there was really no need for that. Slightly heaving a sigh of relief, Elvis gently took the cup of water from Leah and fed Gu Mingming some water. Seeing that her lips had moistened a little, his brows relaxed and he smiled softly. Xiaoming, what do you want me to do? Elvis asked softly. Gu Mingming was taken aback for a moment. She shook her head and placed her finger on Elvis's chest. She said softly, I want you to follow your heart. Whatever your heart desires, just do. Elvis held Gu Mingming's little hand and pressed it down gently. Her soft palm was placed on the outside of the second rib on his left side. A low and hoarse voice came out of his mouth and landed directly on Gu Mingming's chest. Other than you, there is nothing else in this position. Gu Mingming blushed slightly. She stared straight into Elvis's eyes, as if she was about to be sucked into them. To be honest, I don't care about what happens to them. I don't think they need my forgiveness. But, if it can make you feel better by forgiving them, then I will forgive them. Gu Mingming lowered her head. She could not tell what was going on in her heart. Subconsciously, she still hoped that Elvis could forgive his parents. Because then, he could truly break free from his childhood nightmare. But if this forgiveness was based on her feelings, was there any meaning to it? Sighing, Gu Mingming looked up and said, "Let's not talk about whether I forgive them or not. The most important thing now is not to let Natalie die just like that. Alright, let's think of a way to save her." Elvis had always been indulgent towards Gu Mingming. He would accompany her to do whatever she wanted to do, even if it was through a mountain of daggers or a sea of flames. Gu Mingming did not say anything more. She just obediently leaned against Elvis's chest and refused to leave. Elvis allowed her to rely on him. But since they wanted to save Natalie, they could not leave this place for the time being. Exchanging a look with Leah, they didn't say anything and just stood up and walked back in unison. Elvis was once a member of this group of stray beasts, and this base was an old one for the stray beasts. It had not been moved for decades, and no regular tribe dared to provoke them, so the original caves were basically preserved. However, the cave that Elvis used to live in had already changed owners a few times. Now there was only a second-level jackal living inside. It looked sinister and wretched, but it was a sensible one. Seeing that it could not afford to offend the person, it tucked its tail between its legs and vacated the place. Elvis and Leah dug the cave deeper and more spacious. After all, they were going to stay here for a while, and they did not want Gu Mingming to suffer. Gu Mingming sat on a tree branch outside the cave and watched her two men perspire profusely. She felt a strange softness in her heart. They had all experienced so many cruel things, but they had grown into the warmest appearance. This in itself should be something worth celebrating. Chapter 8:13. Gu Mingming blushed and glared at Ian. "You are the one in heat. Your whole family is in heat." Ian snorted. "I am the only one in my family." Gu Mingming was rendered speechless. She bit her lower lip and scrunched up her nose, making a threatening expression. Ian rolled his eyes in disdain. He leaned to the side in a sickly manner. "You also know that the fox in your family will secrete a high concentration of fox seductive fragrance once it mates. The last time you guys got excited, the entire Saint Nazir was boiling for 3 days. If you guys continue to be affectionate here, Wabi and I will have to slaughter the entire stray beast horde to protect you guys. I did some calculations when I was patrolling. There are a few hundred of them here. It will take a while to chop them down like carrots. It will be very tiring. Do me a favor and have some integrity when you are abusing dogs, alright?" Gu Mingming blushed furiously at Ian's words. She spat at him. "I told you I am not in heat." Ian snorted disdainfully and said, "Look at yourself. The way you look at your two males? Their eyeballs are about to fall out. Also, you are drooling so much that there are puddles under the tree. Do you see that? Isn't this called in heat?" Gu Mingming instinctively touched her chin. There was no drool at all. "You are just a cheap mouth. Be careful that no females will want you in the future." Ian shrugged. "Anyway, there are already people in the Eagle Owl tribe who have mated. As long as I can produce cubs and not exterminate the tribe, I will have not let down my ancestors." Gu Mingming gave Ian a fake smile. "If your ancestors knew that you are so unmotivated, they would probably crawl out of their graves and strangle you to death." Ian did not comment. "Anyway, you just have to control yourself." "Got it." So annoying. Gu Mingming turned her head and ignored Ian. Elvis and Leah were not weak. It was as easy as cutting tofu for them to dig a cave. Anyway, they were not going to stay there for long, so it did not need to be especially big. They just did not want Gu Mingming to suffer, so they took care of the details. In one afternoon, the cave had been completely renovated. There were no traces or smells of anyone else staying here before Elvis carried Gu Mingming inside. The sky was already dark and Gu Mingming was extremely sleepy. She only ate some roasted meat perfunctorily for dinner before falling into a deep sleep in Elvis's arms. The next morning, Peter rushed anxiously to where Gu Mingming and the rest were staying. Wabi was blocking them from the outside. Peter was not Wabiai's match even in his peak condition, not to mention now that he was crippled. Moreover, he was here to ask for help, so he naturally did not dare to barge in. When Gu Mingming finally woke up and walked out of the cave while stretching, he shouted, "Great messenger, please save Natalie." Gu Mingming was taken aback for a moment before she walked up to Peter. The panic in his eyes was not feigned. It seemed like Natalie's condition was really not good. Gu Mingming looked down and said, "I can't help you if you don't tell me the truth." Peter gritted his teeth and stomped his feet, as if he had made up his mind. I'll tell you everything." Gu Mingming didn't reply and just looked at Peter quietly. Chapter 8:14. Gu Mingming didn't look surprised at all. Instead, it was Elvis and Leah who looked rather startled. You guessed it. Elvis knew that Peter was outside. How could he let Gu Mingming meet him alone? So within 2 seconds of Gu Mingming leaving the cave, he was already following behind her. Seeing her expression, he knew that she already had a good idea. Otherwise, she wouldn't have said things like, "I can't help you if you don't tell the truth" to Peter. He knew that this little fellow had long hardened her heart to save Natalie. So even if Peter didn't say anything, Gu Mingming wouldn't just stand by and watch. Gu Mingming nodded and didn't deny it. She directly answered. When the monsoon season was about to end, the stray beasts and Natalie went on a hunger strike. It's not hard to guess when you put it all together. Leah lazily rested an arm on Elvis's face, looking as if he was still in a daze. His long and narrow eyes were filled with the sleepiness of the morning. His slightly hoarse voice landed beside Gu Mingming's ears. Let me think. You mean that when we were attacked by stray beasts on the way back from Sauter to St. Nazaire, it was Cole who transferred people from here? Gu Mingming's face turned red. It sounded like a question, but Leah had used a declarative tone to reveal the truth. Without waiting for Gu Mingming's reply, Leah hooked Gu Mingming's face and kissed her gently on the tip of her brows. His low, hoarse voice was filled with joy and affection. In my opinion, you are the real little fox. You managed to guess it with just a few clues. Leah and Gu Mingming's conversation was like Tai Chi, but Elvis and Peter weren't fools. If they still didn't understand what was going on, they could forget about being leaders for so many years. Peter frowned deeply. His eyes were filled with ruthlessness and determination as he said, "Do you mean that Cole was the one who turned Natalie into this?" Gu Mingming sighed and said, "Yes and no." Peter glared at Gu Mingming, unhappy with her attitude. Elvis stepped forward and stood between Peter and Gu Mingming. His murderous aura permeated the air. Control your expression. Otherwise, your female will be the one to suffer. At the mention of Natalie, it was as if someone had grabbed Peter's Achilles heel. His arrogance was obviously deflated. If it had been someone else, he would have laughed coldly and retorted sarcastically, returning the same words to the other party. Threatening people was a skill that stray beasts did not need to learn to master. Unfortunately, the other party was a female who could crush him to death with one hand, and he had a favor to ask of her. Looking away, Peter said coldly, "That is your mother, beast." Elvis chuckled. "I don't care." Peter was furious, not because he was under someone else's control, but because his heart ached for Elvis. Natalie had sacrificed so much for Elvis, but Elvis had no intention of cherishing her. Elvis lifted his head and looked condescendingly at Peter. It's not a wise decision to provoke someone you can't afford to offend. Peter, have you really gone senile? Peter clenched his fists. He didn't continue arguing with Elvis. He heaved a long sigh of relief. Great messenger, please tell me, did Natalie become like this because of Cole? Chapter 8:15. Gu Mingming didn't give Peter a chance to retort. She just said, "If I'm not wrong, when he brought the stray beasts back alive, he also brought Natalie a piece of news. Elvis is now a 5th-level orc and his companions are all very powerful. His partner is the messenger of the beast deity and has inherited all the powers of the mighty beast king from the Snake King Valley. Everyone who was severely injured by his aura is the best proof. Cole is really making the best use of every step he takes. He must squeeze out every last bit of value. Peter wasn't as wise and far-sighted as Leah, nor was he like Gu Mengmeng, a transmigrator who had watched many television dramas and learned theories. But as long as it concerned Natalie, there was nothing he couldn't understand. After all, his entire life had been spent on researching that one person. Natalie hadn't made a fuss all these years. She was as quiet as a soulless doll. She clearly didn't care about anything, but insisted on living on. She wanted Peter to keep his promise to her and not hurt her only remaining son. But Cole had come to tell her that her son was now so powerful and had a partner like Gu Mengmeng. Peter was no longer a threat to him. Peter could no longer hurt Elvis. This was as good as indirectly telling Natalie that she could die now. There was no longer any meaning for her to grit her teeth and live on. Peter clenched his fists tightly. His expression was twisted and malevolent. If Cole was standing in front of him now, even if they were both fifth-level orcs, he would definitely take Cole down with him. No wonder Natalie, who had no interest in anything, suddenly said that she wanted to go out for a walk. He had foolishly thought that Cole had really convinced her and made her accept him. So it turned out that she had only gone over to confirm if Cole's words were true. So it turned out that she was just abandoning him again. The only difference was that this time, she was even more ruthless than the previous time. She wanted to end her own life to abandon him. But even so, he still couldn't bear to. You have a way to save her, right? Peter asked Gu Mengmeng. Although it was a question, he was very sure of it. Since Gu Mengmeng had already guessed everything, there was only one reason for her to force him to reveal Cole's identity. She could save Natalie, but he had to pay a price. And what she told Cole was just to force him to show his sincerity. Any condition, any price, as long as you can save Natalie, I'll agree. Including letting her leave you? Gu Mengmeng asked nonchalantly. Peter clenched his fists so tightly that he almost crushed his bones. Gritting his teeth, his eyes were bloodshot as if he had been stabbed by a sharp knife. He squeezed out word by word from between his teeth. If this is the only way for her to get better, I am willing to let her go. Chapter 8:16. Peter's tightly clenched fists relaxed slightly. He smiled bitterly. Anyway, she has already hated me for so many years. There are so many things to hate that I can't even count them all. It doesn't matter if there's one more. Gu Mengmeng nodded. It's good that you have this awareness. Peter hesitated for a moment before asking, what do you want to do? Will she be in danger? How upset will she be this time? Gu Mengmeng tapped her chin lightly, as if deliberating how to reply to Peter. She thought for a moment before smiling. She probably won't be upset. At most, she will be so angry that she wants to strangle you. Peter was taken aback at first before he smiled. If I am the only one injured, you can go ahead and do it without any qualms. As long as the effects are good enough, it's not a problem for me to be injured. Gu Mengmeng believed Peter's words. She knew better than anyone else how blindly loyal the males in the beast world could be in the face of love, right? Gu Mengmeng said, let me warn you first. I plan to throw a bucket of dirty water at you. Peter nodded and stood still. Come on. Gu Mengmeng's face froze. She looked awkwardly at Peter, who looked like he was waiting for the dirty water to be thrown at him. She sighed to herself. Communication was really a problem. Taking a deep breath, Gu Mengmeng adjusted her expression and said, Elvis and I have 4 sons. One of them was drugged by Cole and was in a coma for a long time. He only woke up recently, but even though he regained consciousness, he is still under the control of the drug. Without Cole's antidote, he cannot return to my side. So, this matter, I plan to put the blame on you. Peter's face was blank. He was not sensitive to anything other than Natalie. What did Natalie have to do with Elvis's son being drugged and controlled by Cole? Gu Mengmeng looked at his confused face. She knew that this man's emotional quotient was really low. He couldn't even see through such a simple matter. Sighing, Gu Mengmeng adopted the attitude of don't be so serious with a fool. You just have to remember that you had a part in this. When Natalie looks for you, you just have to act as yourself and stick to your character's settings. Understand? Peter nodded in confusion. As long as Natalie could live, He was willing to do anything. However, didn't they say that they were going to slander him? Not splashing again? Sigh, although Elvis was his son and was outstanding in all aspects, his taste in females was really poor. Why did he end up picking a weird one after so many choices? This was definitely not because of him, but most likely because of Natalie. After all, Natalie's only shortcoming was her poor taste in choosing partners. Otherwise, why would she look down on him but care so much about those good-for-nothings? Gu Mengmeng didn't care about what Peter thought, and just followed Elvis and Leah back to the cave. After a simple breakfast, she let Elvis carry her to Natalie's cave. Elvis had promised to cooperate with Gu Mengmeng to save Natalie, so he would not go back on his word. So no matter what she said, he would cooperate. When the two of them entered the cave, Natalie was still lying quietly like yesterday, as if she hadn't even turned over once. Upon hearing Gu Mengmeng's words, Natalie's eyelashes quivered, but she did not open her eyes. Chapter 8:17. Whenever she could not see him, she would dream of knowing how her son was doing. Had he grown taller? Had he eaten his fill? Would he be bullied by others? But now that he had appeared, she did not have the courage to open her eyes to look at him. How was she going to tell him that she was the cause of all his suffering? Gu Mengmeng turned back and gently pulled Elvis's hand over, placing it over Natalie's. Elvis was very resistant. It was not that he could not forgive Natalie, but he did not like females other than Gu Mengmeng touching his body, especially when Gu Mengmeng personally placed his hand over another female's hand. This made Elvis very unhappy. His brows were tightly furrowed and his eyes looked as if they were about to burst into flames. When Nina had hugged Lee's waist, Gu Mengmeng had almost gone crazy and wanted to kill him. His hand could be touched by anyone? Every time Leah said, "My Gu Mengmeng does not like anyone touching me," it pierced Elvis's heart. He thought she had a serious obsession with her own males, so he was as strict with himself as Leah. Other than during battles, he did not allow anyone else to touch him. But it turned out that he had been thinking too much. Xiaoming only cared about Leah. Elvis's heart was already overflowing with jealousy, but Gu Mengmeng was completely oblivious. She really could not be blamed for this. The person lying in front of her was Elvis's biological mother. "Natalie, actually, I have a favor to ask of you." Gu Mengmeng's tone was slow, and it sounded like she was in a difficult position. It was not a small matter for the messenger of the beast deity to use the word favor. So the moment Gu Mengmeng said those words, Natalie's heart trembled violently. Although she did not open her eyes, her furrowed brows indicated that she was listening very seriously. "Actually, we are here to look for Peter." Gu Mengmeng could feel Natalie's hands turning cold and trembling the moment she heard that name. She could not bear to do it, but what else could she do? Qixian is a child of mine and Elvis's. He was drugged by a stray beast and is now being held hostage. His whereabouts are unknown, and we do not know if he is dead or alive. Gu Mengmeng did not explain further, but Natalie slowly opened her eyes. The moment her eyelids fluttered open, tears fell from her lashes. That gaze accurately landed on Elvis's face, filled with guilt and despair. With a hoarse and thick nasal voice as weak as gossamer, he only said one sentence. "Get Peter here, I want to see him." Gu Mengmeng knew that she did not need to say anything else. Natalie had already imagined a scene where a grandfather kidnapped his grandson and tortured him in every possible way. Even if she had to come up with something, she would never be able to come up with a more brutal scene than the one in her mind. Nodding, Gu Mengmeng led Elvis out of Natalie's cave. The moment Elvis retracted his hand, he strode away. For the first time in history, he left Gu Mengmeng behind him and walked off without even turning back. Gu Mengmeng thought that Elvis was unwilling to forgive Natalie, so although he had come reluctantly, he still felt very uncomfortable. But she did not think that he was jealous. Chapter 8:18. How should she put it? In Gu Mengmeng's eyes, Peter was a ruthless and ambitious character. He did not care about right or wrong, life or death, others or himself. Other than Natalie, he did not care about anything else. But such a person was now wearing the flustered expression of a young lad experiencing his first awakening of love. It was as if he was holding a love letter and was about to confess to the person he liked for the first time. Just how much love did he have for someone who tortured his own son to death without batting an eyelid to reveal such an expression? Gu Mingming couldn't help smiling. It seemed like that weak female in the cave who could be blown away by a gust of wind was much more powerful than this murderous male in front of her. Gu Mingming and Peter did not acknowledge each other, and just brushed past each other. The moment they exited the cave, Leah hugged Gu Mingming's waist. He used his chin to point at Elvis, who was standing with his back facing them. "What did you do to him? Why do you look like you've seen through the mortal world?" Gu Mingming tilted her head and looked at Elvis's back. She felt an inexplicable sense of pressure. She had already discussed with him about Natalie's matter before they came. Why did he not have such a huge reaction? Could it be that he could not take the blow of seeing his own mother? "I'll go take a look." Gu Mingming broke free from Li's arms and walked behind Elvis. Elvis knew that Gu Mingming had come over. Even if he did not turn back to look at her, every cell in his body was involuntarily monitoring her every move. He knew at the moment she came out of the cave. "Elvis." Gu Mingming tugged at Elvis's arm gently. Elvis turned his head to the other side, his rejection obvious. Gu Mingming was taken aback. He did not look like he was upset over Natalie's matter. Instead, he looked like he was angry at her. But why? She did not know what she had done wrong, but Gu Mingming felt inexplicably guilty. Because Elvis had never been angry at her. No matter how many unreasonable things she had done, he had always indulged her. What was wrong with him today? Gu Mingming was at a loss. She tugged at Elvis's arm and shook it. She called out sweetly, "Hubby." Elvis remained unmoved. He turned his head to the other side, and even started to withdraw his hand from Gu Mingming's grasp. Was he really angry? Gu Mingming finally experienced the helplessness Elvis felt every time he saw her angry. He would say sincerely, "Xiaoming, I was wrong. Although I don't know what I did wrong, but it must be my fault that you are so angry. Tell me where I did wrong, I will definitely change." That was probably what she was feeling right now. Pursing her lips, Gu Mingming looked up at the back of Elvis's head and sniffled. "If you dare to shake me off, I will cry." Elvis suddenly turned around and met Gu Mingming's misty eyes. The panic rising in his blue pupils could not be described with words. If there was anything in this world that could easily control Elvis, it would be Gu Mingming. No matter how angry he was, he couldn't bear to see her cry. He reached out a hand to touch her little face to comfort her, but his hand froze in midair. This hand had just been touched by another female. It was too dirty. Chapter 8:19. Then are you still angry? Gu Mingming pouted, with a look that said, "If you say an answer I don't want to hear, I will cry for you." Facing Gu Mingming, Elvis was always the one who surrendered first. Sighing, a trace of loneliness and melancholy appeared in his eyes. He forced a smile, but there was only bitterness at the corner of his lips. With a low voice he said, "I'm not angry." Gu Mingming's heart skipped a beat. Although Elvis said he was not angry, why did she feel that it was worse for him to lose his temper and roar at her? Gu Mingming now felt that she might have been spoiled by Elvis and Leah. She was always flattered until she developed masochistic tendencies. Letting go of Elvis's arm, Gu Mingming threw herself into Elvis's arms. She wrapped her arms around Elvis's waist tightly and rested her chin on Elvis's chest. Looking up at Elvis, her eyes were watery and her long eyelashes fluttered, making one's heart ache for her. Even if she did not say anything, Elvis had already lost all his armor and was utterly defeated. Raising his clean hand to rub Gu Mingming's little head, he hesitated but still kissed her brow. "It's my fault for not being able to make you like me. I don't blame you." Gu Mingming was taken aback. She asked in a low, muffled voice, "Who said you don't make me like you? You are my hubby. Why wouldn't I like you? Have you forgotten? I said before I love you." Elvis chuckled. "You are still willing to lie to me. At least it proves that you still care about me, right?" "I didn't lie to you." Gu Mingming was a little anxious. Why did he suddenly say that she did not love him? Elvis just smiled. His gaze was deep, as if he was facing an abyss. Gu Mingming tiptoed and could barely reach Elvis's chin. She kissed him and said in a sweet voice, "Hubby, what's wrong with you? You are making me flustered. I feel like you are going to abandon me." Elvis moved the hand that Natalie had touched behind his back and wrapped his other arm around her waist, afraid that she would make a mistake when she jumped around. This was a completely habitual action that even he himself did not realize. No matter how dejected or sad he would still subconsciously protect her. Elvis had always pulled her into his arms the moment he saw her. Today, she had already taken the initiative to throw herself into his arms, but he still had one hand behind his back. This had never happened before. Gu Mingming pursed her lips and took a step back. Her eyes were red as she glared at Elvis and said, "If you are in a bad mood because you are reminiscing about your childhood, I can coax you and accompany you. It doesn't matter. But if you really want to abandon me, silly girl, why would I abandon you?" Elvis's heart ached when he saw that she was really about to cry. "Then why don't you hug me?" Gu Mingming insisted. Elvis stretched out the hand that was behind his back. With a faint gaze he spat out, "Dirty." Gu Mingming was taken aback. She stared fixedly at Elvis's long and slender hand with distinct joints. She looked up in confusion and asked, "It's clearly clean, how is it dirty?" "It was touched by others. Isn't it dirty?" Elvis stared straight at Gu Mingming with some sadness and disappointment. "Or are you only concerned about whether Leah is clean, and as for me, I don't care?" His blue eyes were filled with an urgent desire, as if he was saying, "I beg you, lie to me one more time. Deny it, quickly deny it." Aside from the topic, that, my son is in a bad mood today. I need to coax him. So, that was the end of today's update. Chapter 820. Gu Mingming stared blankly at Elvis's hand, then at his eyes, then at his hand, then at his eyes. After hesitating for a moment, she probed, "So you are throwing a tantrum because I let Natalie touch you just now?" Elvis was unwilling to admit it, so he retracted his gaze and looked elsewhere. Gu Mingming burst out laughing, the tears in her eyes evaporating instantly. She wrapped her arms around Elvis's waist fearlessly and said, "Ah, so you are jealous. Are you dumb? Natalie is your mother beast. Her love for you is the purest and cleanest. How can you say that you are dirty after being touched by her?" Elvis frowned, clearly not buying Gu Mingming's explanation. Now that Gu Mingming knew the crux of the problem, she was no longer sullen. She climbed onto Elvis's body with both her hands and legs. Although he did not take the initiative to hug her, he did not have any intention of avoiding her. He even subconsciously used his hand to support her, afraid that she would not be able to climb steadily and fall. Gu Mingming hung onto Elvis's body like a monkey, kissing his lips over and over again. She said, "Do you have a conscience to say that I don't care about you? I almost killed Ellie when he hooked onto your beast skin dress the other time. Have you forgotten?" Elvis's heart skipped a beat. He recalled the first time he met Ellie, when Ellie intentionally said ambiguous words to make Gu Mingming misunderstand him, but Gu Mingming used her actions to slap Ellie in the face. The corners of his lips curled up slightly. Who said that his Xiaoming had never been jealous because of him? She also minded others touching him. Gu Mingming said softly, "My hands are sore. Are you really not going to hug me? I am going to fall. It will definitely hurt if I fall from such a high height." With that, Gu Mingming closed her eyes with a look as if she was ready to sacrifice herself for a martyr. Then she suddenly let go and fell without any warning. But, would she fall from hanging onto Elvis's body? What a joke! Her body reacted faster than her brain. Gu Mingming had only let go of Elvis's neck for less than half a second, when Elvis's large hand had already caught her but firmly. Gu Mingming smiled slyly and kissed Elvis's face. She said, "I knew you couldn't bear to drop me." Elvis did not say anything and just frowned with a bad expression. He was pleased that she was willing to coax him, but he could not risk his own safety. Gu Mingming cupped his face with both hands and said, "Hubby, I am actually very petty. If it weren't for the fact that Natalie really doesn't want to live anymore, And you're the only key to unlocking her will to live. I wouldn't have let her touch you even if she was your mother. Just this once, take it as me repaying my debt of gratitude. In the future, if anyone dares to extend their claws towards you, I will directly chop them off. Looking at Gu Mengmeng pretending to be fierce, Elvis's gaze softened. Even his tone unconsciously softened. Repay a debt of gratitude? Gu Mengmeng nodded and said, if not for Natalie giving you life, how would I have the chance to meet such a good husband? Wasn't this a huge favor? I should at least repay him a little. Elvis raised his eyebrows. You need me to repay your kindness? Chapter 8:21. For some reason, Elvis liked Gu Mengmeng when she was fooling around. His mood was the brightest when she was laughing without a care in the world. Kissing Gu Mengmeng's little mouth, he bit her lips in a slightly punitive manner. Looking at her watery eyes staring at him pitifully as if she was begging for mercy, Elvis's heart softened into a mess. In the end, he gave up and his only insistence was, don't ever risk yourself in the future, do you hear me? Gu Mengmeng blinked her eyes and understood that Elvis was referring to her sudden release of her hands and fake fall just now. She chuckled and wrapped her arms around Elvis's neck and kissed him, saying, is there any place safer than your arms in this world? I really don't believe that you would watch me fall and not catch me. She was clearly fooling around, but Elvis could not help but smile. This feeling of being completely controlled by her was really magical. Her confident look made Elvis feel as if a drop of sweet dew had dripped onto the tip of his heart, nourishing his entire body. Yeah, his entire body felt comfortable. Without saying a word, Elvis carried Gu Mengmeng and walked away. Where are we going? Gu Mengmeng asked. To wash my hands. The corners of Elvis's lips were still curled upwards. His depression just now had long been swept away by this little girl's antics. There was really no hope for him, right? He was already a powerful 5th-level orc and by right, he should have absolute confidence that he was an excellent partner that was hard to come by and no female would easily abandon him due to any considerations. But in front of this little girl, he was still so worried about his gains and losses. He suddenly understood what this little girl had said when she was at odds with him at the beginning of their mating. I mated with you because I love you, not because you are strong. He seemed to have understood something now. No matter how strong a man was, he was just like that in front of love. He knew that he loved her. He had always known that. But now that he had clear evidence to prove that he loved her as much as he thought, he felt very happy. Carrying Gu Mengmeng to the lakeside, Elvis put her down and started to wash his hands seriously. That degree of seriousness made Gu Mengmeng feel that he was not washing his hands, but wanted to scrape off a layer of skin from her hands. This kind of washing method, considering the degree of cleanliness he felt satisfied with, at most, there would only be a pile of bones left. Gu Mengmeng squatted beside Elvis, her fair and tender hands dabbing at the water. Then she pulled Elvis's hand over and helped him wash his hands gently and carefully. After making sure that every single detail was washed clean, Gu Mengmeng pulled his hand over and kissed it. Then, she caressed her own face and smiled sweetly at Elvis. Alright, it's clean now. There's only my aura on this hand. Smell it. Elvis held Gu Mengmeng's little hand and brought the back of his hand to his nose to sniff. After confirming that it was really just her scent, he smiled in satisfaction and said, very fragrant, very sweet. Gu Mengmeng's eyes were filled with tears of joy. Before she could finish her sentence, Elvis pulled her into his arms. He kissed her collarbone and said, don't push me to others in the future, alright? Gu Mengmeng nodded and said, don't push me to others anymore, alright? Gu Mengmeng smiled. She wanted to say that was her mother, and not someone else. Chapter 8:22. Gu Mengmeng did not argue further. If she was Elvis's only sense of security, then even though it was selfish, Gu Mengmeng enjoyed this unique trust. She wanted to protect and cherish this feeling. She felt that only she was different in Elvis's eyes. This made her very happy. Hugging and kissing Elvis, Gu Mengmeng promised, it will never happen again. No one is allowed to touch my hubby. Gu Mingming's coquettish words softened Elvis's heart. It was already noon by the time he carried Gu Mingming back to Natalie's cave. Leah had cooked a huge pot of meat. The heat was on point and it melted in one's mouth. Although it was meat, it was not greasy and was just right for the weak Natalie. Gu Mingming was about to carry the bowl in for Natalie when she saw Peter walking out of the cave with a silly smile on his face. His gaze was so gentle that it was a little strange. The way he was covering his face, was indescribable. Peter only stopped abruptly when he almost bumped into Gu Mingming. He was stunned for a moment when he looked up at Gu Mingming. Then he awkwardly cleared his throat and turned his face to the side. Gu Mingming then saw the obvious red flush on his face. This should have been a slap? But why was he smiling so amorously? Could it be that Peter was different from others and his excitement was on his face? Did it feel good to be slapped? Although it was not appropriate to speculate about her own father-in-law, Gu Mingming really could not understand Peter's expression. Was he going to be embarrassed or smiling like he was in heat? Could he not do it at the same time? It looked so strange and wretched. Peter opened his mouth, as if he wanted to say something to Gu Mingming. But after hesitating for a moment, he did not say a single word. He just walked around Gu Mingming. Gu Mingming glanced at Elvis, who shot her a he's crazy look. Neither of them said a word, and just shrugged their shoulders. They continued walking deeper into the cave. When they entered, they saw that Natalie was already sitting up. She looked very angry. Very angry. Her originally pale face was slightly flushed due to the atmosphere. Her chest was heaving up and down violently. It was obvious that she had just quarreled, or rather, scolded someone. His eyes were misty, and it seemed that he was very angry. His fingers gripped the animal skin tightly, as if he wanted to tear it into pieces. Looking up, he was taken aback when he saw that it was Gu Mingming. He instinctively looked at Elvis beside her and lowered his head. That one look was filled with guilt. Gu Mingming carried the food to Natalie's side and said, "This is made by my other partner. It's delicious. Do you want to try it?" Natalie didn't take the food. She pursed her lips, and her fingers were trembling. After a long silence, she said, "I'll definitely get the antidote for you. No matter what. I won't let him hurt you again. I can do it." She was obviously very afraid, but she still made a firm promise. Gu Mingming's heart warmed because she knew that before she met Elvis, he was not alone. Although she could not protect him by her side, she had never stopped caring for Elvis. Chapter 8:23. Elvis carried Gu Mingming up unhappily and stared at her hand. "Touching others in front of me? Do you think I am dead?" Gu Mingming didn't mind Elvis's overbearing way of speaking. Instead, she enjoyed it. Hubby was mighty and domineering, wasn't he? The little dear's heart was pounding wildly. Smiling sweetly, she tilted her head and looked at Elvis with adoration. "Wow, my hubby is so handsome." Elvis couldn't keep his dark expression any longer. He chuckled. "I am handsome and you still touch others?" Gu Mingming blushed. Was she being teased by her hubby in front of her mother-in-law? Sneaking a glance at Natalie, she realized that Natalie was completely dumbfounded. She looked at Elvis and herself as if she had been struck by lightning. There was fear and uneasiness in her eyes, and she looked like she was about to cry. Gu Mingming found it very strange. Peter and Natalie seemed to have had a huge fight just now, to the point of almost hitting each other. But Natalie had stubbornly held back her tears. Now why was she crying? Could it be that seeing Elvis flirting with her reminded her of her dead partner, so her heart ached? But that shouldn't be the case. That gaze was clearly one of fear. What was there to be afraid of? Still looking? Elvis was unhappy that someone had drawn Gu Mingming's gaze away from his face. Regardless of gender, it made him furious. Gu Mingming felt that if she didn't pacify him, Elvis might explode in anger. She didn't want Elvis to be jealous of some fake and inferior product again. So she cupped Elvis's face with both hands and kissed him. I won't look. My eyes and my heart are all yours. My sweetheart." Even though he knew that she was fooling around again, Elvis still enjoyed the sweetness in his heart. Seeing him smile, Gu Mingming knew that she had succeeded in pacifying him. So she struck while the iron was hot. Hubby, I want to tell you something. MMM? He knew that she must have a motive for being so unaccountably solicitous. Gu Mingming blinked cutely. I saw grapes on the way back. I want to eat grapes. On the way back, he did see wild grapevines on a cliff. There were bunches of grapes hanging on them. They were so purple that they were almost black. They looked delicious. But she didn't bother then. She had wanted to call Leah, Wabi and Ian to pluck some for them to eat. For now, she would use this reason to distract Elvis. Grapes. She wanted to eat, so she asked her male to find it. It was normal. But he did not say anything when he saw her on the way back, nor when he met Leah at the door. But he just had to say it now. If Elvis could not tell that she was trying to send him away on purpose, then he would be a fool. However, seeing how greedy she was, he couldn't bear to disappoint her. Even though he knew that she had ulterior motives, he still nodded his head, and went to the place she had described to find the fruit called grapes that she wanted to eat. After Elvis left, Gu Mingming sat beside Natalie. Natalie's emotions calmed down a lot, but she looked at Gu Mingming cautiously, as if she was in a dilemma. Finally, she opened her mouth and said, "Can you not abandon Elvis?" Gu Mingming was taken aback. She pointed at herself and asked, "Me? Abandon Elvis? Why should I abandon Elvis?" Chapter 824. Natalie straightened her body and knelt beside Gu Mingming. She was hesitant and timid, but she still held on to Gu Mingming's little hand shakily. Her fingertips were cold and did not have any flesh at all. There was only a thin layer of skin wrapped around the bones, and it had a weight that could not be ignored. Elvis suffered a lot when he was young, and never had a day of relaxation. He had to be cold and flawless, or else he had to die. This established the flaw in his character. He was not as good as other males at coaxing you with gentle words. But he treated you sincerely, he must be. Moreover, he is already a 5th-level beast. Even if you don't like him, don't abandon him on account of his strong fighting power, alright? Natalie looked up at Gu Mingming with a pleading expression. Tears were welling up in her eyes, as if they would fall off in clusters if Gu Mingming shook her head slightly. You met him for the first time today after his first month. How do you know that he loves me? Gu Mingming asked softly. Natalie was taken aback. She lowered her head and said, Gu Mingming said. You don't know, right? You only said that out of a mother's instinct to protect him and not let him get hurt. You don't care whether he loves me or not, right? Actually, Natalie could not completely deny Gu Mingming's words, because in her heart, she really thought that way. But this was not the whole story. Natalie was afraid that her words would not help Elvis and instead bring him trouble, so she hurriedly explained. A person's eyes will not lie. No matter how fierce his gaze looks, the gentleness behind it cannot be hidden. His eyes from the beginning to the end can only see you, that's all. You are already his entire world. He is just not good at expressing himself. I beg you, give him a chance. Even if you don't dote on him, just don't abandon him. Gu Mingming pulled her collar and showed Elvis's mating mark on her collarbone to Natalie. She said, Elvis is my first partner. I love him very much and will never abandon him. What's more, I didn't think he looked at me fiercely. On the contrary, I saw a heavy love in his eyes. He is a man who is willing to risk his life for me. He is worthy of me entrusting my life to him. Natalie was taken aback. She stared at Gu Mingming for a long time before her tears finally fell. Choking with sobs, he said, You are the messenger of the beast deity after all. You see things more clearly than me. Gu Mingming released her collar and hugged her legs. She pressed her face against her knees and tilted her head to look at Natalie. So it's not like you don't know anything. Natalie smiled bitterly, as if she had opened up her heart for the first time. I've been locked up here for 17 years. In these 17 years, I've seen too many females captured by stray beasts being treated. The bloody reality is laid out in front of me. If I still can't see his care and protection for me, then I'm not only stupid, but also blind. Chapter 825. I often think that if I had begged him to take me away when I was pregnant, my children would not have died. If I had stayed by his side obediently on the first day he caught me, without making a fuss or running away, maybe my partners would not have died. If I had not cut off a piece of my own skin so decisively after he forced me to mate with him, without even giving him a chance to explain before mating with him, and turning him into a stray beast, maybe I would still be living peacefully in the tribe, with a strong and loving partner, and adorable children. If I could have overcome the fear in my heart at the start, and listened to his confession patiently, maybe he would not have been forced to mate with me that way. If there really is an if, all this could not have happened. It's all my fault, it's all my fault. Gu Mingming held onto Natalie's wrist and said, "Loving you is not an excuse to hurt you. None of this is your fault." Natalie looked up, her tears trapped in her eyes. Wasn't it her fault? How could it not be her fault? Gu Mingming knew the struggle in Natalie's heart. This was the self-denial of one's own helplessness towards reality. Unable to change the world, you had no way to complain about the unfairness of the heavens, so you could only search for the reason internally, constantly thinking, "It's all my fault, it's all my fault, it must be because I am not good enough. That's why it happened." Gu Mingming held onto Natalie's shoulders and looked into her eyes, saying, "The past has already happened, we can't change it. There are no ifs in this world. Everyone has to pay the price for the decisions they make now. It's meaningless to live in the past, you have to focus on the present and the future." Natalie's face was blank, she could not understand what Gu Mingming was saying, but she felt something in her heart collapse. Gu Mingming continued, "He has the right to like you, but that was his own decision, so he should bear the consequences himself. We can't be responsible for everyone who likes us. We can only be responsible for ourselves." Gu Mingming held up Natalie's hand and placed it on her chest, saying, "Ask your heart, do you like him now?" Of course Natalie knew who Gu Mingming was talking about. She bit her lower lip and hesitated, but still shook her head. "There are so many lives between us. How can we like it? Every day we spend together is just torture to each other." Gu Mingming nodded and said, "If you don't like him, then this will be easy." Natalie looked up at Gu Mingming in confusion. Gu Mingming continued, "I'll bring you back to Saint Nazaire with me." Natalie was taken aback and instinctively avoided Gu Mingming's eyes. "But Qishuan's antidote?" Gu Mingming shrugged her shoulders nonchalantly and said, "It doesn't matter, I will save my own son myself. At most, I'll gather the 5 treasures and ask Cole for the antidote. I'm sure Cole won't dare to trick me." Natalie pursed her lips and didn't say anything. She didn't shake her head or nod. She seemed to be deep in thought. Gu Mingming did not rush her and just said, "You also know that I have the power of a beast king. If you are afraid that he will come to Saint Nazaire to pester you, I can actually go out and kill him now. It's just a matter of time to catch my breath, once and for all." As Gu Mingming said that, she wanted to stand up, but Natalie grabbed her wrist. "Aside from the topic, it's time to promote the correct values again. My babies, you must remember, forcing girls to have sex with you for any reason is unforgivable. Don't believe him when he says he loves you. If he really loves you, he won't bear to hurt you like this." This was the only thing that could not be forgiven. Chapter 826. Gu Mingming looked down at Natalie without saying a word. She just looked at her quietly, as if waiting for her to speak first. Natalie carefully released her hand and bit her lower lip. In a voice even softer than a mosquito's buzz, she said, "He is Elvis's beast father after all." Gu Mingming chuckled. This shyness was really in a woman's nature. She liked him and couldn't bear to part with him. Why did she have to find so many excuses? But she didn't expose him. She just said mildly, "For Elvis's sake, I can spare his life. But for my son, Elvis will kill him personally. So handing over the antidote to me honestly is the wisest move." Natalie nodded and promised, "I will definitely make him hand over the antidote. Definitely." Gu Mingming didn't say anything else. She turned and walked out of the cave. After taking 2 steps, she turned back and said, "Hurry up and eat the food. It won't taste good if it gets cold." Natalie nodded in response. Then she slowly picked up the bowl. Gu Mingming heaved a sigh of relief. She shook her head in exasperation and walked out of the cave. Once out of the cave, she felt that the atmosphere was a little strange. Elvis and Leah were standing at one side, facing off against Peter. The tension between them was rather strong, and they looked as if they wanted to tear each other apart. But when he saw Gu Mingming come out, he immediately retracted his murderous aura, as if nothing had happened. Gu Mingming was puzzled, but didn't probe further in front of Peter. Gu Mingming would never question her own males in front of others, and embarrass them to prove how much they cared about her. Such a foolish act was not something Gu Mingming would do. In front of others, she would give Elvis and Leah enough face. No matter what doubts or dissatisfactions she had, she would wait until they reached home, and there were no outsiders before asking. So Gu Mingming walked towards Elvis and said to Peter, "She has already eaten the food I sent in. As long as she is willing to eat, her body will slowly recover." Peter couldn't hide the joy on his face. Today was the happiest day he had been in the past 6 months. He truly felt that Natalie had given up on abandoning him. She wanted to live for him. Even though she only wanted the antidote that he couldn't take out, he let her quarrel with him, listened to her vicious curses and threats, and watched her tremble in anger as she threw things at him. This embarrassing and unbearable scene actually made him feel a trace of sweetness in his heart. As long as she was willing to live well and continue to stay by his side, it would be fine. If torturing him would make her happy, then so be it. What was this little beating and scolding? As long as she didn't abandon him, it was fine. Gu Mingming hesitated for a moment before stopping. She looked at Peter and said, "I told her just now that I can bring her back to Saint Nazaire, but she rejected me." Peter was taken aback. He abruptly looked up at Gu Mingming. His eyes were in a daze, as if he couldn't react in time. Gu Mingming continued, "I also said, if she is afraid of you pestering her, I can kill you first to prevent any future troubles. But she stopped me. She didn't want him to die?" This news struck Peter's heart violently, as if someone was holding a drumstick and beating it harshly on his chest. Chapter 8:27. But now, Gu Mingming had the ability and was willing to kill him for her. She was even bringing her far away to give her freedom. Why did she reject her? Just to stay behind and torture him? Or was it because after 17 years of companionship, she had also developed a little reluctance to part with him? This thought made Peter's brain feel like it had been bombed by an atomic bomb. There was only a vast expanse of white smoke in his brain, and he even forgot how to breathe. Gu Mingming had no time to watch the love and hate drama between her in-laws. She just leaned into Elvis's arms and allowed Elvis and Leah to carry her back to the cave they were temporarily staying in. This was the territory of the stray beasts. Strictly speaking, Wabi was a stray beast now. But he was a little special. In his heart, Ellie was just a tool to break through the boundaries. He had never loved or valued her at all. So from a certain perspective, Wabi was a stray beast from the start. So to Wabi, life here was not much different from that in the Snake King Valley. Besides Gu Mingming, no one else dared to provoke him. So he was happy to be free and rarely clung to Gu Mingming. He would only appear when she needed a thug. Most of the time, he would find a comfortable place to nest in, and occasionally watch the stray beasts fight. When he was in a good mood, he would reward the winner, such as eating him. Ian was not as powerful as Wabi, but he could fly. Who could be his match in the sky? The two of them were quite self-sufficient, and lived a carefree life. It also gave Gu Mingming's family of 3 enough private space to do some indescribable things. For example, Gu Mingming pulled a piece of beast skin over to block the entrance of the cave. Then, she leaned against the bed and looked down at her 2 males, smiling without saying a word. Leah waved his tail and climbed to the side of Gu Mingming's legs seductively. He placed his hands on both sides of Gu Mingming's body, looking like he was sleeping on the bed. He licked the tip of his tongue lightly and asked in an ambiguous and low voice, "Is the queen going to pamper us when she smiles like this?" Gu Mingming watched as Leah moved in a flirtatious manner like a cat. He was clearly in human form, but he was crawling towards her on his knees. His large furry tail swayed to and fro with the rhythm of his crawling, forcefully creating the impression that he was wearing a special sexy lingerie. He used this ambiguous and suggestive tone to create a languid atmosphere. Squinting her eyes, Gu Mingming suppressed her heartbeat and pulled the corners of her lips. She poked Li's brows with one finger and said, "Seems like the matter you want to hide from me this time is very serious. You even resorted to seduction, Leah did not deny it. He bit his lower lip and put on a flirtatious and seductive look. "So you want to punish me?" "Master." The last two words were said right beside Gu Mingming's ear. His warm breath carried the character's immersion into her heart. Master-servant play? Again with this kind of trick. Gu Mingming pushed Li's shoulders away. If she did not push him away, Gu Mingming's heart would jump out. This fellow always had a way to challenge her shameless limits. But Gu Mingming was not immune to his methods. Clearing her throat, Gu Mingming turned her face to the side. "You guys are not willing to say. Do you want me to ask Peter?" Chapter 828. Gu Mingming clearly knew that these two fellows were just trying to change the topic, but she still couldn't stop her heart from racing. Even her bones were melted by Elvis's last mmm. Her legs turned to jelly and she melted into Elvis's arms. Biting her lip, Gu Mingming said, "Stop fooling around, this is not Saint Nazaire." Elvis bit Gu Mingming's neck, his voice filled with a husky charm as he tempted her. "It's all right, with Wabi guarding the cave entrance, no one will dare to enter." Gu Mingming's face was flushed red as she tried hard to maintain her composure. "Wabi will hear. It's all right, I am deaf." Wabi's voice drifted lazily through the beast's skin. Gu Mingming shuddered and instantly hardened her resolve to not let Elvis and Leah have their way. Hardening her heart, she pushed Elvis away. She didn't manage to steady herself, but only staggered a little before she steadied herself with the help of the wall. She reached out a hand to make a stop gesture, then took 2 deep breaths to calm herself down. She tore off the beast's skin hanging at the entrance and grinned at Wabi, saying, "Little shit, thank you. But I want to have a private conversation with my male now. Can you step aside for a while?" Wabi rejected being called little shit from the bottom of his heart. This would definitely hurt the pride and confidence he had held onto for over 800 years. So every time Gu Mingming called him that, he would choose to be deaf and pretend he couldn't hear it. Narrowing his eyes, he looked at Gu Mingming and said, "Go ahead, I am deaf anyway." Gu Mingming gritted her teeth and turned to reveal the mark on the back of her neck, before sighing, "Snake, ah snake, if you were here, he would definitely not dare to bully me like this." Wabi's temples throbbed at Gu Mingming's words. He felt that if he didn't leave, he would be letting Snake down. Without saying a word, Wabi shifted his body lazily and wandered away. After Wabi left, Gu Mingming released a small amount of beast pressure to scare away all the stray beasts that had been stirred up by Li's fox's seductive fragrance. She then casually threw the beast's skin in her hand and dusted her hands, turning to look at Elvis and Leah saying, "You two, continue hiding it if you want to. I won't ask anymore." Elvis and Leah exchanged glances, seemingly surprised. Unfortunately, before he could heave a sigh of relief, he heard Gu Mingming continue, "From today onwards, both of you will stay outside the cave. Don't talk to me and don't prepare food for me. I want to be independent and live alone." Elvis and Leah frowned in unison. Elvis took a step forward and scooped her into his arms without any explanation. He said angrily, "You promise that no matter what happens, you will never abandon me." Leah also leaned over with an aggrieved expression. His long and narrow eyes were filled with resentment. He did not say a single word, but it was as if he had said 1,000 words. Gu Mingming lifted her chin and pushed Elvis. With her current abilities, no one could hold her if she was unwilling. "I didn't abandon you. You're still my partners. It's just that I don't like you anymore." Xiaomeng. Elvis's brows furrowed into a dead knot as he said angrily, "You're not allowed to not love me." Gu Mingming shrugged. "I love him. How can I not love him? Out of topic. Yeah, my daughter-in-law is going to throw a tantrum. I'm going to move a stool and some watermelons to watch the show. Does anyone want to join? Chapter 829. But you guys are getting more and more used to hiding things from me. The previous incident with Cole was decided by the two of you privately, saying that you were afraid that I would spoil the plan due to my impatience. Seeing that it was your first offense, I didn't hold it against you. But this time, you guys are doing the same thing again. Hiding something from me even though you guys clearly have something going on. Gu Mingming's tone was very calm, as if she was just stating the facts. But this attitude made Elvis and Leah at a loss of what to do. If she threw a tantrum and threw a tantrum, they would still have 100 ways to coax her. What they were most afraid of was her not throwing a tantrum. In a relationship, lying is the beginning of a breakdown. You guys will slowly start to have secrets that I don't know, and I will become more and more paranoid. The cycle will repeat until either I break down, or you guys break down. The final outcome will always be death. Since that's the case, why don't we cut our losses in time? From now on, I will learn to live independently and not rely on you guys for everything. I'll learn how to ignore your unspeakable secrets and live my own life. Xiaomeng. Elvis growled. When Gu Mingming hardened her heart, why would she be afraid of Elvis's expression? Not giving him a chance to interrupt, she continued. But don't worry, just because I still love you guys now, I won't be so heartless to turn you guys into stray beasts. I will always keep the mark on my body, and you guys will still be my partners in name. Elvis held Gu Mingming's waist tightly once again, refusing to let go despite Gu Mingming pushing him. He frowned and said, If you don't want me, you might as well kill me. Elvis looked down at Gu Mingming's hand that was pushing against his chest. He used a lot of strength, but with Gu Mingming's current abilities, it was not impossible for her to push him away. But to push him away, she had to use enough strength to break at least 2 of his ribs. That pair of fair little hands were hammering and pushing against his chest, but she could not bear to do so. You obviously can't bear to leave me, right? The corners of his lips curled up slightly, his smile carrying a hint of mischief. His blue eyes were filled with mirth as he lowered his head and kissed Gu Mingming's lips. He allowed her to bite him, allowed her to behave atrociously, but he could not stop her from escaping. The kiss lasted for a long time until Gu Mingming finally stopped throwing a tantrum or resisting. Elvis then slowly released her, and used his thumb to wipe his lips. He lowered his head to look at the 2 drops of saliva on his thumb and chuckled. You bit me for half a day, but there is not even a scratch on my skin. You still don't want to admit that your heart aches for me? Yeah, I just can't bear to hurt you guys, so you guys can bully me. Gu Mingming glared at them, feeling a little angry. Elvis's heart ached for her aggrieved look and he said helplessly, How could we bear to bully you? It's just that there are some things that will upset you. We will solve them. You just have to be happy. Gu Mingming hung her head and said, You're still unwilling to tell me even at this stage? Elvis's heart tightened. He looked at Leah and finally surrendered. Don't be angry, I'll tell you all right? Gu Mingming looked up at Elvis and asked, Do you think I'm throwing a tantrum just because I want to know about this? Elvis was taken aback, as if he did not understand what Gu Mingming meant. Gu Mingming sighed and shook her head. Forget it, I don't want to know anymore. You guys go out, I want to rest. Aside from the topic, most of the time, a girl throwing a tantrum was not because of the matter itself, but because of the other half's attitude. Unfortunately, most of the time, boys would never understand. Chapter 830. Elvis and Leah looked at each other. She was the one who made a big fuss and insisted on knowing. Now that they told her, she said she didn't want to know? Moreover, didn't they already agree to tell her? Why did she still have to chase them out? Gu Mingming looked at the 2 males who stood rooted to the ground. She waved her hands and said, If you guys aren't leaving, then I'll leave. I'll sleep outside tonight. Xiaomeng. Elvis pulled her back and locked her in his arms. Don't be angry, Leah, and I will listen to you. Today we will guard you at the entrance. Be a good girl and sleep in the cave, all right? Gu Mingming's face turned red. Gu Mingming flung Elvis away and gestured a please gesture to chase them away. Elvis and Leah knew that Gu Mingming was really angry. They didn't want to make her even angrier. Hence, the two partners who were so famous in the beast world stood pitifully at the entrance of the cave. To be able to see Gu Mingming through the entrance, the two of them didn't avoid the sun. They let the afternoon sun burn their bodies as they guarded the entrance without moving an inch. Gu Mingming was really heartless. She turned her head and sprawled on the bed to take an afternoon nap. She only showed Elvis and Leah her back view. She didn't even turn her body. After a long while, the two of them who were listening carefully at the entrance knew that Gu Mingming had fallen asleep. They then sighed in disappointment, and their shoulders slumped down unknowingly. The last time you chased me out of the cave was after you returned from the beauty pageant in Sodor. You found out that I created opportunities for you during winter. And that time, you didn't stay angry for so long. Elvis looked at Gu Mingming's back view and felt a little tormented. He was already used to her nestling in his arms when she slept. The way she slept in a daze always made his heart soften. If he wasn't around, would she fall onto the ground the moment she turned over? She was used to hugging his tail when she slept. Now that her arms were empty, would she not be able to sleep well? Leah smiled bitterly and said, "Yeah, I was envious when I saw you being chased out. At least you had the right to be chased out. But I was forbidden from getting close to you and refused to interact with you. I didn't even have the chance to beg for mercy." Elvis smiled helplessly and said, "Yeah, so you got what you wanted? Does it feel good to be kicked out?" Leah smacked his lips, as if savoring it seriously. Then he chuckled and said, "In the past we didn't seem to care much about where we slept. Why are we so obsessed with the cave now? Not being able to enter makes my heart feel empty." Elvis's gaze was deep as he stared at the little person on the bed. "What we are fixated on is not the cave, but the little person throwing a tantrum in the cave." Leah nodded in agreement. "That's right. Once she gets angry, there's nothing we can do." Elvis's gaze contained a gentleness that even he himself could not detect. When his gaze lingered on Gu Mingming, it was filled with happiness. Being kicked out of the house by her was also a kind of happiness. After all, he didn't even have the chance to be expelled in the past. "So, do you really intend to tell her about this?" Lee's brows were still furrowed. That matter. He did not want Mingming to know. Elvis glanced sideways at Leah. "Do you have a better idea?" Chapter 831. Elvis nodded. "I can choose not to say, but I cannot lie. I promised her that I would not lie to her." Leah nodded and did not say anything else. He just turned to the side to start cooking. Elvis stood at the same spot and continued to stare at Gu Mingming silently. That petite body had such a strong attraction that nothing in this world could compare to her in his eyes. Sighing, Elvis shook his head in exasperation. Just like that, she stood at the top of the tree. When Gu Mingming stood up and stretched lazily, it was just a gentle action, but it instantly affected the emotions of the two people standing at the door. "Gu Mingming, I cooked potato and meat paste. Can I bring it in for you to try?" Leah leaned against the door and asked with a fawning expression. Gu Mingming ignored him as if she could not hear him. Leah was not dejected and continued as if he did not notice Gu Mingming ignoring him. "Natalie's body is weak, so this is definitely suitable for her to eat. How about I accompany you to bring it over, and you can eat with her there?" Gu Mingming remained silent. Leah looked at Elvis. Elvis sighed and his gaze deepened. Something might have happened in Sodor. This sentence stunned Gu Mingming. She looked up into Elvis's eyes and pursed her thin lips tightly without saying a word. Elvis took a deep breath and continued. "I always knew that the stray beasts had such a standard because they had the support of a mighty figure. But I only found out today that this mighty figure is Cole." Gu Mingming was stunned. The stray beast's backer was Cole? If even Elvis knew about it, it meant that it was not a recent incident. But wasn't Cole the previous leader of Sodor? The leader of the Messenger's tribe was the backer of the stray beasts? Was this a plot of collusion between officials and bandits? Elvis could not bear to see Gu Mingming frown. and did not want her to spend too much time pondering over coal. Hence he continued. The stray beasts' attacks on tribes may seem random, but it is not. They attacked tribes that were against Cole, or had obstructed him in certain matters. They can be considered as Cole's secret force that helps him settle some shady matters. Gu Mingming frowned. She recalled that Cole had brought Qixian somewhere after the dry season, and that he had not appeared for such a long time. Thinking back, the last time she saw him, he seemed to have asked her if the water source was ready and said that Sauter did not lack water. But later on, Gu Mingming dug her own well, and did not take Cole's words to heart. But now that he thought about it, Elvis first mentioned that something might have happened to Sauter. Then he mentioned that Cole was supporting the stray beasts behind the scenes. Elvis let out a long sigh and looked at Gu Mingming with a determined gaze, as if he was telling her, "Don't be afraid, I'm here." Peter said that at the beginning of the dry season, Cole came back with a little wolf cub. He felt that the little wolf cub looked similar to me, and Cole seemed to treat him very well. He even said, "I can't let my precious son lack water." After that, he brought all the stray beasts of 4th level and above away, leaving only Peter to guard the camp. Gu Mingming took a deep breath. She did not need to guess to know that the wolf pup Cole was carrying was Qixian. Sauter does not lack water. Chapter 832. Sauter only had Barit and Oakley guarding it. Even if the two of them worked together, they would not be Cole's match, not to mention that Cole had brought along stray beasts of 4th level and above. If Cole used Qixian to threaten them, perhaps Barit and Oakley could only let him do whatever he wanted. Gu Mingming clenched her teeth and stood up to walk out. When she passed by Elvis, Elvis grabbed her arm and hugged her. Gu Mingming struggled a little, but Elvis hugged her even tighter. He said in a hoarse voice, "Don't move, let me hug you for a while, just a while." Gu Mingming was stuck to Elvis's words. She had only taken an afternoon nap, but Gu Mingming felt as if she had been away from them for a long time. Elvis's deep and reserved voice resonated from his chest to Gu Mingming's ears. "You are clearly right in front of me, but I still miss you so much. What should I do? I feel like I am sick." Gu Mingming's heart softened, but her expression did not soften. She said coldly, "If you are sick, let Leah treat you." Elvis hooked Gu Mingming's little face and stared into her eyes. He can treat external injuries, but mental illnesses, medicine is ineffective. Gu Mingming turned her head and pulled her face back. "If you have a mental illness, find someone who understands you to treat it. I think Leah is just the right person. Both of you are so close and have no secrets. You can open your hearts and have a chat. Just treat it as a psychological consultation. Maybe you will recover after the chat." Elvis carried Gu Mingming up. Gu Mingming instinctively wrapped her arms around his neck. She wanted to retract her arms when she met his smiling eyes. But how could Elvis let her? A large hand held the back of her head, and he kissed her on the lips. They lingered for a long time, and were filled with love. "But only you are my medicine. You can treat my illness and take my life." Gu Mingming's heart was clenched. Her entire chest was trembling in response. On the other hand, Elvis had already stood at the entrance of the cave to reflect on himself for an entire afternoon. After hearing Gu Mingming's jealous words, if he still did not know why Gu Mingming was so angry that she chased them out, he could not continue being her first partner. Wiping Gu Mingming's lips that were stung by his kiss, Elvis said dotingly and indulgently, "You are angry that I always hide things from you. I won't hide it from you in the future. Don't be angry, okay?" Gu Mingming pursed her lips and her expression softened a little, but she still pretended to be confused and asked, "Really? Or are you just trying to coax me?" "Everything I say to you is a promise, and I won't lie to you." Elvis kissed Gu Mingming's little face, which had turned into a steamed bun from anger. Having just woken up, her skin was tender and soft and the texture was extremely good. "Moreover, I hid these things from you because I was afraid it would affect your mood." If you feel worse because you don't know, isn't that putting the cart before the horse? I won't do it again. Gu Mingming then nodded her head in satisfaction. Then she glanced at Leah coldly at the side. Leah swayed his tail and walked to Gu Mingming's side like a little wife. He placed his arm on Elvis's shoulder and used his long and narrow eyes to act out an affectionate apology. Chapter 833. Gu Mingming also knew that she had made a huge fuss today. In fact, she could have used gentler methods and words to tell them what she thought, but she just couldn't control her temper at the moment. Perhaps it was because of the bloody tragedy that Natalie and Peter had kept from each other. She felt really uneasy, terrified and at a loss as to what to do. If Elvis and Leah were to keep things from her, would there come a day when these minor details would pile up into a colossal figure that would crush all the trust between them? You wouldn't understand if I didn't say it. This was the initial state of estrangement in a relationship. But now that Elvis and Leah had promised not to keep things from her again, she naturally wouldn't continue to pester them endlessly. After all, her mental age was already over 1,000 years old. There was a limit to how willful she could be. Lowering her head, Gu Mingming twisted her fingers. My tone wasn't good today. I said many harsh words. I'm sorry. Elvis and Leah each stood on one side and kissed Gu Mingming's face at the same time. The two perfectly handsome faces with completely different styles had the same doting expression on them. Elvis did not say a word while Leah held Gu Mingming's little hand and kissed it. You know very well that compared to an apology, we prefer to hear your confession. Gu Mingming's face was blushing, looking even more hazy and gentle under the moonlight. She said in a soft tone, I will never say that I want to leave again. You guys are the most important people to me. I only took an afternoon nap, and I already feel so lonely. If you guys really leave, I don't even know who I can cry to. Silly girl. Elvis tightened his grip on her waist. Looking into her apologetic eyes, he smiled. Unless I die, I will never leave you. Gu Mingming pressed her forehead against Elvis's. You won't leave even if I chase you away? Elvis kissed her on the lips. Then he replied in a low voice. You are my entire world. Where else can I go? Gu Mingming didn't say anything else. She just smiled sweetly. Leah brought over a large bowl of potato and meat paste. Can we eat now? Do you want it here or take it to Natalie's and have it with her? Gu Mingming thought for a while and said, Let's go eat with Natalie. I will bid farewell to her on the way. You want to go to Solder? Elvis asked as he carried Gu Mingming towards Natalie's cave. Gu Mingming nodded and said, I'm worried about Barit and Oakley and Qixian is also here. Elvis stopped in his tracks and looked at her quietly. Gu Mingming tilted her head and asked, What's wrong? Elvis took a deep breath and wanted to suppress the discomfort in his heart, but when he thought about how he promised not to hide anything from her, he swallowed back the words I'm fine, and ground it into a sentence in his throat. Barit is your pursuer. He even confessed to you earlier than Leah. You're so worried about him. Are you thinking of taking him in as our third child? Gu Mingming was taken aback for a moment before smiling. Instead of answering, she asked, Then I also mentioned Oakley. Are we going to accept him as the fourth in our family? Chapter 834. Gu Mingming was dumbfounded by Elvis's words. Why? Elvis stared at Gu Mingming quietly for a long time before asking, You like Oakley? Gu Mingming shook her head without thinking. I don't, but I don't like Barit either. Then why does Barit have the right to challenge me? Elvis said. He went up to the platform of the deity's punishment for you, and offered to become your stored food without knowing that you are the messenger of the beast deity. You praised him more than once, and you even kissed him before. Gu Mingming could admit to the first few things, but what did he mean by kissing him before? Why did Gu Mingming have no impression of it at all? When did I kiss him before? Elvis's gaze deepened. You did because you kissed him, so he miraculously came back to life. On the platform of the deity's punishment, Leah saw it too. Gu Mingming turned to look at Leah, only to see him nodding his head unwillingly with a conflicted expression. The way he looked at Gu Mingming was not right. Gu Mingming recalled carefully and remembered that there was indeed such a thing. At that time, Barit had fainted due to dehydration. Actually, he could have recovered by feeding him some water, but Gu Mingming tried a few times to no avail. In the end, she had no choice but to use her mouth to feed Barit water, and she only fed him one mouthful before being brought away by Elvis. Gu Mingming face-bombed, sweating. That was not a kiss. I was just saving him. If I didn't feed him some water, he would have been captured by Leah to be skinned and made into a specimen. How scary. Leah, who had been silent all this while, said faintly, "If you don't like him, what does his life or death have to do with you?" This sour feeling. Gu Mingming did not dare to dwell on the past with these two anymore. In their eyes, as long as Gu Mingming looked at someone, that person would definitely be their love rival. Even for Cole, just because Gu Mingming mentioned his name frequently, the two of them had already imagined all sorts of love-hate plots. As a result, Gu Mingming didn't even dare to scold Cole in front of them in the later stages. "I really want to go to Sauter because I am worried, but it's not because I like Barit. It's because he, Oakley, and the rest of the Snow Foxes are now my tribesmen, and I have to be responsible for their lives. You can't ignore them when you know they're in danger." Elvis heaved a sigh of relief and did not refute Gu Mingming. He did not want to force Gu Mingming to admit that she liked males other than him and Leah, so he had been anticipating Gu Mingming's rebuttal from the start. Now that she had refuted him, he naturally would not pursue the matter any further. What should he do if she doesn't refute him? They continued walking towards Natalie's side. When they were about to reach the entrance of the cave, Elvis opened his mouth and said, "Xiaomeng, if there comes a day when you really have your eyes on a male, you must tell me in advance so that I can be mentally prepared." Just as Gu Mingming was about to say that she would not bring any more men into the house, Leah spoke first. "Yes, you must tell me in advance, so that I can silence him before the rice is cooked." Gu Mingming was taken aback for a moment before she broke into a smile. She patted Lee's shoulder and said, "Haha, it's really a dangerous thing to be liked by me." "No?" Leah raised his eyebrows and asked. Chapter 835. Elvis and Leah both laughed. Gu Mingming's words had two meanings. Firstly, it was a promise. In the beast world, the difference in levels was absolute. Elvis was 5th level, Leah was 4th level, and unmated males were at most 3rd level. How could they talk about protecting themselves in the hands of Elvis and Leah, who had been through hundreds of battles? Their chances of escaping were not high, so how could they talk about challenging? This meant that there would not be any new members in the family. Secondly, it was a spur. She was indirectly telling them that she did not wish to see them get hurt. They had to become even stronger and protect themselves no matter what. Only then would they have the right to stand by her side and be her males. "I will always listen to Xiaomeng." Elvis kissed Gu Mingming's temple. Leah bit Gu Mingming's left ear and rubbed it intimately. "As you wish." After a while, Elvis and Leah continued to accompany Gu Mingming to Natalie's cave. But when they were about to reach, the three of them stopped in their tracks with a serious expression. Yes, the beast world did not have the concept of chastity, but Gu Mingming did. "I happened to bump into my in-laws eating fish while delivering food. It was so awkward at the cave entrance. Should I turn around and leave? Or should I turn around and leave? It's urgent, I'm waiting online." Gu Mingming jumped down from Elvis's arms and took 2 steps back with a blushing face. She asked Leah to divide a portion of the food into a stone bowl, and let Elvis place it at the cave entrance. Elvis did as he was told with a black face. Then, he carried Gu Mingming back to the cave where they were temporarily staying. Gu Mingming had slept a lot in the afternoon, and was in high spirits now. She could not fall asleep no matter what, so after dinner, she dragged Elvis and Leah to discuss the rescue mission at Sauter. When she first heard the news, Gu Mingming wanted to rush over immediately. But after calming down, she felt that it was not appropriate to rush over now. Elvis and Leah also felt the same way. The dry season had just started and Cole had already brought his men over. No matter what he wanted to do, he would have already succeeded by now. It was not the best time for them to rush over now. Even though Gu Mingming was the main fighting force, with Qixian in Cole's hands, there was a limit to what she could do. And if she was not careful, she might even be threatened by Cole, causing her teammates to be tied up and be controlled by him. Besides, The stray beasts led by Peter were under Cole's orders. Without Cole's permission, Peter would never have told them this news. Leah boiled water for her to bathe. Although the small lake here was almost dried up, she had not bathed for 2 to 3 days and her body was extremely uncomfortable. Although it was not to the extent of being unbearable, how could Elvis and Leah allow her to suffer? Who cared if other people could drink it or not? All they wanted was for their female to have a comfortable bath. If anyone was dissatisfied, they could try to snatch the bath water from their hands. Chapter 836. I have been very careful along the way and didn't realize that anyone was following me. Carter and Melinda were in the ocean and couldn't have passed this news to Peter. Fay Rouet had taken the water route back to Saint Nazaire and had neither the time nor the motive to leak the news. But Peter knew that I had obtained the kiss of the ocean and knew that I would take this route back to Saint Nazaire. He came at the right time, and even though he knew that he couldn't snatch anything from me with his abilities, he still came. Leah gently stirred up the hot water, and the beast's skin slid across Gu Mingming's smooth shoulders. Crystal clear water droplets flowed down Gu Mingming's shoulder blades, creating a suggestive sound. Lee's gaze was focused as if he was admiring a work of art. The words that came out of his mouth also seemed to be a professional evaluation of this work of art. It was soothing but convincing. I'm afraid this was all part of Cole's plan from the start. Gu Mingming nodded and opened her mouth to catch a grape that Elvis handed over. Oh, so sweet, Gu Mingming sighed in satisfaction. Previously, she had found an excuse to send Elvis away so that she could speak to Natalie alone. She didn't expect Elvis to really pluck the grapes, and Gu Mingming was addicted to them the moment she tasted them. Although she didn't request Elvis to pluck them again, but was there a need to say such things? Elvis had such a strong desire for any joyful expression on Gu Mingming's face. He would spare no effort to do anything that could make her happy. Not to mention a few bunches of grapes. Even if Gu Mingming wanted the stars in the sky, Elvis would jump on the spot and pluck them for her without a second word. Gu Mingming licked her lips and continued. I think so too. He seems to be purposely luring me back to solder. What do you mean? Elvis plucked another grape and fed it to Gu Mingming. Gu Mingming opened her mouth to receive it, and the sweet juice filled her mouth. Her teeth were filled with the sweet juice, and this sweetness directly brought her a sense of bliss. Gu Mingming narrowed her eyes in satisfaction and swallowed the grape. When the dry season started, he told me that Solder had a well and there was no shortage of water. He asked me if I wanted to go to Solder to spend the dry season there. Was this considered a bribe? I ignored him then and didn't take it to heart. Wasn't it just a well? We can just dig one ourselves. Elvis nodded with a chuckle, but did not mention that she was the only one in the entire beast world who could make digging a well sound so easy. He did not know what the well meant to the beast world. There were only 2 wells in the entire beast world, one in Solder and the other in Saint Nazaire. It was the fountain of life that the messenger of the beast deity had bestowed upon the messenger's tribe. This was also one of the reasons why every tribe wanted to take possession of the messenger of the beast deity. Food in winter and water source in dry season were enough to make every tribe in the entire beast world go crazy. The item that Gu Mingming shared so easily was the treasure that the previous messenger of the beast deity used to control the beast world. Chapter 837. Is this considered coercion? Gu Mingming chuckled. Should I do as he wishes? What is his motive for making me go to Solder? Elvis placed the last grape into Gu Mingming's mouth. It should not be coercion but a provocation. Gu Mingming raised her brows and looked at Elvis. Elvis chuckled. Do you still want to eat? Should I help you pluck more? Gu Mingming shook her head. Elvis rubbed Gu Mingming's little head. Seeing her eating contentedly made him feel better. But at the mention of Cole, a cold glint flashed across Elvis's eyes. It was fleeting and not obvious. Solder is now a division of Saint Nazaire. Cole brought stray beasts to invade. This is a territorial dispute, and there is no room for compromise. So it is not a threat, and I will not allow you to be forced. Gu Mingming nodded. She was impressed by Elvis's strong stance on the left. My hubby is so manly. This imaginary special effect had been floating around Gu Mingming like a 3D experience. Elvis enjoyed Gu Mingming's adoring gaze very much. The water temperature was no longer high enough. Elvis scooped Gu Mingming out of the stone basin and wrapped her up in a warmed beast skin. Leah moved the bathtub out to deal with it. Then he started a fire in the cave to evaporate all the water from Gu Mingming's bath. This was to prevent her from sleeping uncomfortably at night. Elvis placed Gu Mingming on the bed and rested her head on his thighs. He used a clean beast skin to gently dry her hair. His heart softened at the sight of her flushed face from bathing. Let Leah and I handle the territorial dispute, all right? Gu Mingming nodded. Yeah, I am happy to be free. Actually, when Peter told them this piece of news, Leah immediately realized that this was Cole's entire plan. After all, Leah was all too familiar with Cole's methods. Even if he could not immediately piece together the whole picture, he still had a sharp intuition. And Elvis naturally trusted Leah. That was why the two of them were so obviously hostile towards Peter. There was no other reason. Anyone who helped Cole set up a trap for Gu Mingming was naturally an enemy. It was the same for his biological father. He did not tell Gu Mingming because he did not want her to worry. After all, during this period of time, there seemed to be nothing that could make her happy. They had clearly promised to make her happy, but why was it that after mating with them, Gu Mingming's life was filled with trouble? Elvis and Leah frowned slightly. They even suspected if it was because of their unbearable selves that they had tainted Gu Mingming's originally brilliant life. But even so, they still held on to her hand greedily, not wanting to be abandoned by her. That was why they wanted to solve these troubles in a place where she couldn't see them. But their Mingming didn't like it when they hid things from her. From now on, I won't hide anything from you. Elvis was still drying Gu Mingming's hair gently and seriously. He once again promised what he had promised in the afternoon. I'll tell you about the matter and you'll let me handle it. It feels good to be trusted. Xiaoming, thank you. Gu Mingming chuckled and turned around to look at Elvis. Silly hubby, you are my man. If I don't trust you, who else can I trust? Digression. Babies, today's update has ended. Chapter 838. The next morning, Natalie appeared before Gu Mingming. Gu Mingming was momentarily taken aback, but it didn't last long. Natalie's complexion was already much rosier. She must have eaten regularly these few days, in addition to Peter's meticulous care. Her complexion looked much better than before. Although she was still weak, at least she didn't give off the feeling that she was about to die the next second. Natalie kept sneaking glances at Elvis from the corner of her eye, as if she wanted to speak to him. But Elvis's stay-away expression was too cold. Natalie mustered up her courage several times, but ultimately didn't dare to approach Elvis. Sighing, Natalie shifted her gaze back to Gu Mingming. Peter promised to bring me to find the antidote for Qi. Although it will not be easy, I will definitely supervise him in concocting the antidote. Gu Mingming nodded. Gu Mingming tilted her head to look at Peter. An unnatural expression flashed across his face. Clearly, finding the antidote was all nonsense. He was just creating an opportunity to bring Natalie far away from this place and start anew. A world where there would be no misunderstandings or conflicts between the two of them. He just wanted to find a way to stay by Natalie's side, right? But winter is coming after the rainy season. Won't it be too dangerous for you to go out to find the antidote now? Gu Mingming was a little worried. Although Peter was a 5th-level beast and had rich battle experience, even the strongest beast was as insignificant as a grain of sand in the face of nature. How could he overcome the cold winter and the lack of food alone? It really wasn't a wise decision to go out at this time. Natalie's eyes flickered with bitterness as she said, I know. It'll definitely be tough. But I want to quickly concoct the antidote. Only by saving Qi can I have the right to say sorry. Natalie's gaze landed on Elvis again. Seeing that he didn't even frown, completely ignoring her and Peter, she would be lying if she said she wasn't disappointed. But after what Elvis had gone through, it was understandable that he wouldn't forgive her. She needed a chance to make up for it. She had to do something for Elvis, so that she wouldn't be tormented by the guilt in her heart. Peter was also aware of this. That was why he allowed her to do such ridiculous things. However, even though he was by her side, and the so-called antidote was completely up to him, he naturally had a way to make her obediently follow his rhythm, and satisfy her desire to make up for it within a safe and controllable range. Gu Mingming did not say anything else. After all, it was someone else's life and they had the right to decide how they wanted to live it. What she could do was to stop when it was appropriate. Otherwise, going too far would be as bad as falling short. That afternoon, Gu Mingming's group and Natalie left the stray beast camp together. They headed towards the place where Peter had rushed out to snatch the kiss of the ocean. Before they parted, Gu Mingming suddenly placed her hand on Elvis's shoulder. She frowned and turned to look at Peter. "You were the one who bit Elvis's shoulder so deeply that his bones could be seen, right?" Peter froze and instinctively turned to look at Natalie. As expected, he met a pair of angry eyes. Chapter 839. Natalie's eyes reddened and tears welled up in her eyes. Her heartache fell on Elvis's shoulder. Even though there were no teeth marks left, it was as if Natalie could see Elvis being bitten until his flesh was a bloody mess. Clenching her fists, Natalie turned and ran off. Peter glared at Gu Mingming, but she just shrugged. "She will run off if I don't chase after her now." Peter shook his fist fiercely, then ran after Natalie without looking back. Gu Mingming crossed her arms as she watched Peter explain and Natalie throw a tantrum. Only when the two of them had completely disappeared from sight did Gu Mingming lean into Elvis's arms. "Let's go back to Saint Nazaire." Elvis didn't say a word. He just carried Gu Mingming steadily towards Saint Nazaire. Leah reached out to poke Gu Mingming's little face. "Why are you smiling like that?" Gu Mingming had been trying to hold in her laughter, but after being exposed by Leah, she couldn't hold it in any longer. Shaking her shoulders, she laughed. "I guess I am the first person in history to matchmake my own in-laws. I should be able to secure the title of a filial daughter-in-law, right?" Leah raised his brows. "I don't understand. Are you trying to matchmake them or break them up?" Gu Mingming leaned against Elvis's shoulder and chuckled. "In this world, there is probably no one who is more sincere to Natalie than Peter. Peter is the best candidate to ensure that Natalie receives the best care. But he bullied my hubby so much in the past. If I let him live too comfortably, I will not be happy." Elvis lowered his head and kissed Gu Mingming's little head. "So are you taking revenge for me?" Gu Mingming nodded and admitted it openly. The corners of Elvis's lips curled up. His gaze was always gentle when he met her eyes. Raising his brows, he said, "Based on my character, this level of revenge is too gentle. But because you are the one who did it, I feel very blessed. Yeah, just take it that I have already taken my revenge. I will not pursue the past." Actually, Gu Mingming didn't mean that. She did not do anything cruel to Dell, not because she expected Elvis to forgive her. After all, he had gone overboard and was too cruel in the past. In Gu Mingming's heart, it would not be wrong to kill Peter 100 times over. But she did not do so because she did not want to overstep her boundaries. She wanted to leave the final decision to Elvis. No matter how he wanted to take revenge, she would stand by his side unconditionally and support his decision. And the little prank she was playing now was at most creating some trouble for Peter, taking it as interest. However, if Elvis was willing to give up on revenge because of the sweetness she brought him, it would be the best scenario for her. She did not care what happened to Peter. She cared about Elvis. Forgiving Peter was actually letting Elvis off. The heart was only so big. If it was used to store hatred, then where was the love? As for Elvis, his hatred towards Dell had long faded to the point that he could no longer recall it. As a male, especially after having Gu Mingming, Elvis could understand Peter's craziness more and more. You're tuning in to the Limei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.